Hey guys, tonight we're sinking into the soft golden heat of a long-forgotten Anatolian summer, where fig trees lean over dust-packed paths and the smell of roasted grains rides the air like a friendly rumor. You can hear it, can't you? The buzz of insects, the muffled laughter through clay walls, the clink of pottery in motion. The village is small, sun-baked, and suspicious of strangers, but not you. You're expected. You've arrived just in time for the feast. And don't get too excited, though. You probably wouldn't survive this. The sun alone could finish you, and that's before the goat gets involved. There's not a refrigerator in sight, and half the recipes involve fermented things in buried jars. But it doesn't matter. Tonight, you're here to observe, to drift, to taste with your mind, and nap with your imagination. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love seeing how far this sleepy little caravan travels. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge into the village on a road that isn't quite a road. It's more a suggestion, worn by footsteps and donkey hooves, and softened under centuries of summer suns. Dust clings to your calves. The heat is syrupy and relentless, but shaded fig trees dot the way like little umbrellas from the gods. You're not the only one traveling today. Up ahead, a woman with a clay jug balanced impossibly on her head sways past you, her feet barely whispering against the ground. The feast is tomorrow, but the preparations began weeks ago. Today's work is special, though. It's the day when the last ingredients are gathered, the last rumors shared, and the most speculative recipes finalized with dramatic gestures and unconfirmed family lore. As you approach the cluster of homes, mud brick walls coated in pale plaster, roofs padded with woven thatch and old habits, you notice the signs, not literal signs, of course. These people never needed them, but the air smells of yeast and honey. Cloths are draped over wide bowls. A boy chases a chicken, and no one bothers to stop him. Two elders argue over whether lentils are even necessary this year. One has an onion tucked under her arm like a secret weapon. The fig trees, those ancient Anatolian guardians, are heavy with fruit. Some have split in the sun, oozing tiny threads of sugar onto the dusty path. A few bees linger, tipsy on the sweetness. You stoop to pick one up, a fig, not a bee, and it's warm in your hand, the skin thin as parchment. You don't eat it yet, you're saving that for later. Historians still argue whether figs were the central fruit of Anatolian diets, or just a convenient seasonal snack. What's clear is that everyone here treats them with a reverence normally reserved for ancestors and goats. Speaking of which, you'll meet the goat later. She has opinions. A group of children run past, each carrying something, a bundle of herbs, a pinch of salt, a rumor. They giggle as they disappear into a courtyard where laughter already bubbles like stew. A man with dust in his beard and a melon under one arm nods at you. He's chewing something, a bit of sourdough, perhaps, or an old insult he's not done with. He gestures toward a stone basin filled with water. You dip your hands in, the coolness shocking after the heat. It smells faintly of mint, probably because someone tossed a handful of bruised leaves in there this morning. Practical, perfumed. On a wall nearby, drying under the sun, are garlands of thyme, oregano, and something you can't quite name. It looks like a weed and smells like peppery hope. The herb woman might tell you what it is. If you catch her in a good mood, she's unpredictable but not unkind. As you wander deeper into the heart of the village, the atmosphere thickens with purpose. Doors are open. Stone mortars echo with the rhythm of preparation. The air smells like flour, but also sweat and sunlight, and something you'll later learn is apricot vinegar, a curious blend, but it works, mostly. A girl with a clay bowl balanced on her hip passes you, nods, then tosses a bit of dough at a passing boy. He yelps and stumbles, dust rising like applause. No one scolds. There's no time for that. There's bread to bake, beans to sort, and dishes to argue about. Even the dogs seem to be helping, though it's unclear if they're contributing or just hoping someone drops cheese. One of them, an elderly mutt with ears like ragged parchment, trails you loyally for 20 feet before deciding your pockets contain no snacks and returning to his sunny nap. And then, just as you think you've seen everything, the dust, the figs, the laughter, you hear it. A distant humming, low and melodic, like someone remembering a tune from years ago. It's the herb woman, crushing fennel seeds with slow, steady circles. But that's tomorrow's spice. Today, we walk. Today, we taste with our eyes. Today, we begin. You follow the crowd as it subtly shifts direction, like a school of fish sensing the tide toward the market square, or what passes for one in this Anatolian village. There's no formal plaza here, no marble statues or carved pediments, just a flat patch of packed earth, shaded by a few stubborn trees and encircled by worn canvas awnings in sun-faded colors. Each stall seems to lean slightly, as if the whole market is mid-exhale. This is where the feast truly begins, not with the eating, but with the choosing. You trail behind a woman with strong arms and a basket that looks like it's survived several empires. She moves with precision, weaving through the vendors like a gossip-fueled hawk, sniffing here, squeezing there, occasionally bartering with the grace of a seasoned diplomat and the volume of someone who suspects the melons are lying. The air is thick with competing aromas. You catch sharp vinegar from pickled cucumbers, mellow smoke from grilled flatbread, and something vaguely fishy that could either be a river carp or a very dedicated vendor. Someone's crushed coriander underfoot, and the scent hangs like a question you can't quite answer. The olive man is already shouting. Of course he is. Best olives, best brine. My amphora is blessed by the gods. His amphora is chipped, and the gods are unlikely to have weighed in, but you admire that energy. His table is covered in mounds of green and black olives, some so glossy they reflect the sunlight in little bursts. A bowl of wrinkled, sun-dried ones rests beside a pot of herb-flecked oil. You sample one, and it tastes like salt and old secrets. Next to him, a spice merchant fans flies away with a strip of linen. Her table is a mosaic of little bowls, crushed sumac, golden turmeric, dusty cumin, and dried mint that crackles under her fingers. She eyes you with a knowing glance. You want lentils, she says, as if this is a cosmic truth. You do. You just didn't know it yet. A boy offers you a fig from a basket. He claims it's just picked, not cursed. You accept it anyway. It's soft, honey sweet, with a faint crunch that reminds you seeds can be charming. The boy's grin is mostly missing teeth. A cluster of elders huddle near a fish seller's mat. They're not buying. They're arguing over whether trout is appropriate for summer. One insists trout is a spring fish. Another counters that it depends on the river's mood. The fish seller wisely stays silent, gently adjusting the lemon slices tucked under the scales of his display. Historians still argue whether Anatolian summer markets leaned heavily on local catch or imported salted goods from the coast. Here, it seems both are true, depending on who's shouting loudest. Across the way, a young couple debates eggplants, not philosophically, just whether the large one looks suspiciously familiar. You suspect it's the same one they returned last week, now rotated for strategic deception. Near the edge of the market, the herb woman has set up her station. She doesn't advertise, she doesn't need to. Her stall is an explosion of bundled greens, jars of preserved lemons, and a suspiciously sprightly goose nibbling a rosemary sprig. You watch as she packs thyme, oregano, and a strange leaf she calls sorrow's tail into neat stacks. You ask what it's for. She grins, revealing one tooth more than you expected. It keeps the stew honest, she says. Sure, why not? As you drift between the stalls, you begin to notice the other half of the market, the intangible one. People don't just buy here. They barter in stories, in gestures, in long sighs and sharp chuckles. A woman sells garlic by announcing her daughter's engagement. A man offers carrots and demands in exchange a listening ear for his tale about a mysterious humming sound near the olive grove. You stop at a table where apricots are piled like miniature suns. The seller peels one for you without asking. It melts on your tongue. There's the sweetness, of course, but also something floral, something green. He tells you it's because the tree listens to music. You nod slowly, trying not to picture a lute-wielding apricot sapling. The bread seller arrives late, as always, trailing a cart filled with round loaves and flat discs still steaming in linen wraps. She's flanked by two children who declare themselves official crust testers. They both have flour on their noses and the dignity of seasoned professionals. One of the loaves is stuffed with onions, sumac, and cheese. Another has a thumbprint in the center, filled with what might be sour cherry jam or possibly a dare. You take one of each, research purposes. A man with far too many scarves for summer stands beside a pile of cucumbers, muttering to himself. As you pass, he mutters at you, "It's not a cucumber, it's a metaphor." You do not engage. You've learned. And then, just as the crowd seems to reach a soft crescendo of laughter, bartering, and playful deceit, a hush falls. A basket has tipped. Chickpeas scatter like tiny marbles across the earth. A collective pause. Then laughter. The feast will have at least one chaotic dish then. You begin to move away, your arms now filled with bundles of herbs, olives, soft bread, and a fig you'd forgotten you were still holding. A dog noses your foot, hopeful. You give it the heel of a loaf. He accepts. As you leave the square, the breeze carries one last scent, grilled onions and sumac, or maybe just the future waiting patiently in someone's clay pot. You follow the scent, warm thyme, crushed mint, and something tangy you can't quite name, around a crooked wall where vines grow in lazy loops. There, under the lean-to shade of grape branches and a roof of cracked reed mats, sits the herb woman. She's waiting. Of course she is. You weren't expected, but she knew you'd come. Her eyes are half-lidded, not from sleep, but from a kind of eternal amusement. She sits cross-legged on a woven mat, so worn it's more memory than fabric. Around her, bundles of leaves, dried and fresh, ceramic bowls of powders and crushed things, little linen sacks tied with fraying twine, and 3 mangy cats who've chosen this plot of earth for their retirement. You approach slowly, like a student unsure of the subject. She gestures with a twig. Sit, you smell like olives. You do, probably, It's hard not to in this village. She tosses a pinch of something into a shallow bowl and begins to grind it with the smooth rhythm of someone who has never once rushed a recipe. The cats barely glance at you. You're not interesting unless you bring cheese. The herb woman, whose name you never quite catch. Some say it's Lael. Others claim she answers only to, "Hey, you with the basil," is a quiet legend here. Not quite a healer, not quite a witch, definitely not a cook, though somehow her herbs end up in every pot. She begins talking without waiting for a question. "Time for heat," she says. "Mint for cooling, wild parsley for gossip." It keeps people talking. She's joking, maybe, probably. You watch as she separates bundles of dried oregano and crumbles one between her palms. The scent floods the air, spicy, woody, and comforting in a way you didn't expect. She sprinkles it over a slice of flatbread someone has left as tribute or breakfast. Historians still argue whether women like her were apothecaries, midwives, or simply that person who knows things. Titles weren't consistent. What mattered was that when you had a headache or a fever or your goat kept fainting for no clear reason, she was the one you visited. She holds out a leaf toward you. "Smell. Tell me what it is." You sniff. It's sharp, piney, familiar but hard to place. Juniper? You guess. She nods once, used for courage, or chicken, mostly chicken. Behind her, the wind shifts. One of the cats perks up. She mutters something in Anatolian too old for textbooks and tosses a sprig of rosemary over her shoulder, just in case. You don't ask? On her mat lies a heavy book, not parchment, but a flat wooden board where symbols have been etched with a burnt stick. Recipes, spells, shopping list? She flips it once, then sets it aside. The contents, like the woman, are not for tourists. She leans toward a clay jar sealed with wax. She cracks it open with a pop that startles a nearby chicken into squawking indignantly. The scent is unmistakable. Sumac, deep red, tangy, with a citrus-like brightness that cuts through the heat like a whispered insult. You lean closer. For meat? For everything, she says, especially when someone thinks they know better. A young girl arrives breathless, holding a basket of grape leaves. Grandmother says you owe her fennel. The herb woman raises an eyebrow so high it nearly leaves her face. Your grandmother still owes me my goat's name day, honey. They glare at each other for a moment. Then the girl bursts into a grin, drops the basket, and runs off, trailing laughter and grape leaves. You get the feeling that's how most negotiations go around here. The herb woman doesn't laugh, but her mouth twitches. She picks up a jar filled with tiny lavender buds and unscrews the top. "This is not for stew," she says. "This is for sleeping, or for baths, or for crying into, if you're polite about it." She lets you touch a few. The petals crumble like old paper. The smell lingers. You want to carry it home in your pockets. Then she begins sorting tiny seeds. Anise, coriander, something darker and unfamiliar. She holds one up to the light, squints and mutters, "Ah, mischief. Is that a spice?" "No," she says, tossing it into her pocket. "That one's for me." A soft hum begins as she moves, not a song, but the rhythm of someone whose life is made of repetitions. She crushes, she pinches, scatters, raps. A mortar sings against stone. A handful of mint is tossed to the ground. "For the ants," she says, as if that explains anything. Someone calls her name, or something close to it. She sighs and begins packing small cloth bundles. Doses, perhaps, for various ailments or cooks with lofty dreams and no skill. She hands one to you, unprompted. "For the lentils," she says. "Trust me, They're about to become a problem. You blink, you don't ask how she knows. She always knows. She shoos a cat away from her basket, then looks at you again. Go. You'll miss the onion argument. You rise, your hands perfumed with herbs you didn't know had names. The cats don't acknowledge your departure. The herb woman is already humming again. You step back into the dusty sun, the smell of time clinging to your sleeves, and wonder if any of this was real. Then you sneeze, twice, and discover sumac in your hair. Real enough? You wipe the last of the sneezed-out sumac from your sleeve and head down a narrow alley where the scent of baking bread grows stronger with each step. The air here is heavy with flour, yeast, and just a touch of smoke. Not the panicky kind, but the kind that says someone's been keeping an eye on a clay oven since sunrise and only nodded off once, maybe twice. Ahead, the bakery squats like a clay toad, low and round, its dome-shaped oven poking out of the wall like a belly stuffed too full. You duck beneath a crooked wooden awning draped with drying sacks of wheat and spelt. The door creaks open before you knock. It knows why you're here. Inside, it's dim and toasty. A breeze would get lost trying to squeeze in. The baker, known simply as Fairhan to most, and oi, stop that, to his apprentices, is rolling dough with the weary enthusiasm of someone who's been rolling dough since the last solstice. He glances at you, flour in his beard, sweat tracing his temples, and nods toward a stool with a cushion so flat it's become theoretical. You sit, you wait. It's the only acceptable behavior in a bakery this sacred. Firhan works silently. His hands know the dough better than most people. Barley, spelt, and emmer are the staples here, mixed in ratios that seem arbitrary but probably aren't. He slaps one loaf onto a floured surface with the sound of a resigned fish and mutters, "This one's for the mayor. He'll say it's too salty again." Historians still argue whether Anatolian baking techniques were influenced more by Mesopotamian flatbreads or Hittite clay oven styles. What's clear is that bread wasn't just a staple, it was practically a personality trait. Every household had a way of doing it right, which meant everyone else was wrong. Farhan uses a mother dough that's older than two of his children and smells like vinegar, patience, and victory. He feeds it like a pet, speaks to it under his breath, and once punched a visiting trader for suggesting it needed more water. His apprentice, a skinny boy with eyebrows too big for his face, is currently fanning the fire with a palm frond and humming a song about goats and justice. You don't ask. You watch as the baker shapes a disc of dough, presses thumb-sized dents into it, then smears it with a paste of herbs and chopped onions. "This one's for the herb woman," he says. "She'll pretend it's not good enough, then eat all of it." He throws it into the oven with a practiced flick that would make a pizza chef weep. The smell, within moments, is transformative. Crusty edges, this blistered surface, herbs popping in the heat. It's less a food and more a promise. On a shelf nearby, rows of cooling loaves steam gently. Some are flat, others bulbous and puffed. One has an unfortunate hole in the middle that Firhan pretends not to notice. A particularly dark one seems to have been baked out of spite. One corner of the bakery is reserved for special breads, holiday loaves braided with dried fruits and sprinkled with sesame. One has a message stamped into it in decorative knot patterns. "Eat this and remember me." You suspect it's not a love note so much as a threat disguised as dessert. Firhan finally speaks more than a sentence. "There's a woman who wants lentil bread again, says it calms her dreams." You ever try sleeping after lentils? You shake your head. He nods solemnly. Don't. He slides another loaf into the oven with a grimace. Barley's too wet. Again. Spilled water this morning? You know how long it takes barley to forgive you? He chuckles, then sighs. You get the feeling most of his jokes are for the dough. You glance at a sack labeled special flour, and he follows your gaze. That's for the judge's niece, gluten-free. I don't know what that means yet. At some point, he hands you a piece of fresh bread. You didn't ask. It's still warm, steam curling from a jagged tear in the crust. It's slightly sour, surprisingly soft, and flecked with cracked coriander seed. You take one bite and forget the names of most people you've ever met. The apprentice offers you a dab of olive paste. It's intense, like the olive had ambitions, and pairs perfectly with the loaf. A second bite, and you begin contemplating poetry. Farhan doesn't smile, but he nods once, approving of your silence. Suddenly, a commotion outside. The shout of a woman claiming someone swapped her goat's milk for donkeys. A common accusation, surprisingly hard to disprove. Farhan doesn't blink. They'll want rolls for the hearing, he mutters, already shaping dough. He pulls another batch from the oven, flatbreads with air pockets like tiny pillows. One tears open, revealing a smear of garlic and a single sprig of dill that seems to have wandered in by accident. That one's yours, he says, looks confused. You take it. It is confused, but delicious. In the corner, hanging by a nail, is a wooden plaque that reads, "This is not fast food. This is real food. Walk slower." You do. As you rise to leave, Farhan wipes his hands on his apron, then hands you a small pouch. "Starter," he says. "If you're going to dream about bread, dream properly." You step back into the sunlight, it's blinking, belly warm, nose full of steam and crust, and the echo of coriander. The smell of the bakery clings to you like a very content memory, and somewhere behind you, the oven sighs. You shuffle away from the bakery, clutching the small pouch of sourdough starter like it's an ancient relic, which in this village it might as well be. The streets are a little busier now, vendors calling out, donkeys braying in protest to something existential, and children darting between adults with baskets too big for their arms. You turn a corner and nearly trip over a scene of minor drama. Woven sack has split open near the foot of a communal granary, and a tide of golden emmer wheat is spilling dramatically into the street, like treasure from a clumsy pirate's chest. A woman stands over it, arms on hips, mouth already forming a solid paragraph of blame, aimed at a thin man who looks like he hasn't blinked in several minutes. "Why do you stack wheat like chairs?" she demands. "It was windy," he offers weakly, despite the absolute lack of wind. An old man with eyebrows like thatch mutters, "The wheat's running back to the field. It misses the sun." You stand quietly to one side as several townsfolk begin scooping the grains into woven baskets and muttering about the signs. This is the 5th time this month someone's dropped something food-related in public, and at this point, some are beginning to suspect the feast has angered a local grain spirit again. While the granary crew gathers the spill, you glance up at the structure itself. It's built of sun-baked mud brick and rests on a series of wide, flat stones designed to keep out moisture and, more importantly, rats. The roof is sloped and covered with clay tiles, many of which appear to have seen better centuries. Still, it does its job, keeping the grains cool, dry, and only slightly opinionated. Inside, sacks of wheat, spelt, and barley are stacked in surprisingly orderly rows. Thin ropes hang from the rafters, each with a bundle of dried herbs or a small charm tied to it, protection against pests, gossip, and the evil eye, not necessarily in that order. Historians still argue whether Anatolian granaries served as communal storehouses or family-managed silos. Judging by the bickering in this one, it's a bit of both, and entirely a source of village politics. You spot a young boy carefully labeling baskets with a stick dipped in berry juice. Not names, just symbols. A square for wheat, a triangle for barley, a vaguely angry circle for lentils, which apparently have strong feelings about storage. Outside, the woman who was yelling about stacking chairs is now brushing the wheat clean with the back of her hand and muttering under her breath. You catch? Next time he drops the goat cheese, I'm burying it and him in the same jar, which technically might count as a fermentation method. You drift further into the courtyard and find a shaded nook where two elderly women are sorting grains with the quiet concentration of librarians. One of them gestures you closer and holds up two identical handfuls of wheat. She doesn't say a word, just raises her eyebrows. You look closely. One is a little paler. You point. She nods, triumphant, and hands you a fig. No words needed. Grain is serious business. The women talk softly as they work. You catch snippets, stories about harvest festivals past, how a fox once danced through the grain fields during the full moon, whether someone's cousin still uses sand in her flour. One of them pauses, glances at a scoop of barley, and sighs. Too soft, like my nephew. You leave them to it, chuckling, as a pair of teenagers arrive with sacks of newly milled flour. They're covered in dust from head to toe and appear to be arguing about whose tunic is more flower chic. One says his new look is half baker, half ghost. The other says he looks like a tired cloud. You agree with both. Someone brings up the spilled wheat again. One of the elders mutters, "Well, at least it wasn't the lentils." This sparks a small wave of nodding and murmurs. Apparently the lentils are a hot topic. They're known to travel, which is a polite way of saying they end up in places they don't belong, like shoes or soup they weren't invited to. One woman shares a tale of how a spilled basket of green lentils once led to the discovery of an underground wasp's nest, a sprained ankle, and a very short-lived love affair. You blink, then decide it's best not to ask about the middle part. You circle back to the granary entrance, where the man responsible for the original wheat spill is now attempting to patch the bag with a needle and a look of deep regret. His stitches are crooked, but sincere. The woman supervising him holds a loaf of bread like it's a gavel. "It's not about the wheat," she says solemnly. "It's about the message." He nods. You're not sure he knows what the message is. You're not sure she knows, but the bread seems satisfied, so the matter is settled. As you step back into the sun, your sandals crunch lightly over the last few grains scattered in the street. The spill is cleaned, the rumors are refreshed, the feast is still on. You pass a faded wall where someone has carved a symbol that looks like a sheaf of wheat tied with a ribbon. Beneath it, for every grain lost, a tale is born. You smile, you believe it. And somewhere in your pouch, the sourdough starter burps quietly, as if to agree. You follow the scent of sweetness next, a syrupy, sun-warmed trail that winds behind the granary, past a crooked fence patched with gourd vines and uneven stones. There, at the foot of a stubby hill, where the brush grows thick and thorny, is a low-beamed hut with wooden racks leaning at odd angles. The smell of honey here is not subtle. It clings to the air like a song that refuses to end. This is where the honey lives. More accurately, this is where the honey tries to live, because today there's been a theft. A cluster of villagers stands around a toppled beehive, gesturing, muttering, and waving flies away with varying degrees of success. One man, wearing a tunic far too nice for beekeeping, is holding a sticky basket and looking very guilty. Another points at him dramatically. "You were seen near the hives with a jar," he shouts. "It was for research," the accused replies, swatting a bee with what may be a ceremonial ladle. A woman near the back hisses, "You can't research with your mouth." You slip past the crowd and into the shade of the hut where the beekeeper sits, calm, barefoot, and gently fanning a chunk of wax with a woven fan. He doesn't look surprised. He also doesn't look like someone interested in solving the mystery. A pot of golden honey rests by his side, covered loosely with cloth and guarded by a goose. Yes, a goose. The goose eyes you with ancient suspicion. The beekeeper pats the pot and says, "Let them argue that the bees know the truth." You're not sure what that means, but you nod respectfully. Anatolian honey is a thing of legend. The bees here feed on wild thyme, mountain flowers, fig blossoms, and the occasional stubborn herb that refuses to grow anywhere else. The result is thick, fragrant, and complex. Honey with opinions. It's used in almost everything at the summer feast, drizzled over cheese, stirred into barley cakes, preserved with fruits, even added to wine for those who like their drinks, both sweet and deceptively dangerous. Historians still argue whether honey in this region was considered sacred, medicinal, or just dessert. The truth is probably all three. The beekeeper says nothing, but he's gently poking a honeycomb with a carved stick. It seems to be humming back. Outside, the crowd has moved from accusation to wild theory. One boy claims he saw a fox covered in honey sprinting into the hills. Another swears the goat did it. You remember the goat. It's not impossible. The beekeeper finally speaks again. There was enough for everyone. Someone just forgot that. You leave him to his wax and riddles. Wandering uphill a bit, you come across the source, the hives themselves. Carefully arranged in low stacks under woven canopies, each hive is crafted from hollowed logs and sealed with clay around the edges. Bees drift lazily in and out, entirely uninterested in the human drama their labor has inspired. You stand still for a moment, letting the low buzz surround you. It's not threatening. It's sleepy, like a musical nap. The bees are focused. They know the feast is near, even if they aren't invited. Suddenly, you hear shouting below. A child comes racing up the slope, waving a bunch of grape leaves and yelling, "The goat's in the herb garden again." You sigh. Of course she is. You descend the hill to witness a flurry of limbs, leaves, and mild profanity. The goat, short, shaggy, and deeply convinced of her importance, has indeed broken through the low fence and is currently munching her way through someone's prized dill. A woman throws her hands in the air. Not again. She ate the coriander yesterday. Another responds, "At least she has taste." The goat pauses to burp, then moves toward the mint with unsettling determination. Two children attempt to block her with a basket, which she promptly tips over with a single calculated headbutt. You watch as the goat's path of destruction continues, knocking over a bucket of pickled turnips and sending a wave of pinkish brine across the path. The scent is sharp enough to startle a nearby cat, which hisses and retreats into a stack of reeds. The herb woman appears utterly unfazed. She holds out a sprig of rosemary like it's an amulet. Durna, she says firmly. The goat stops. She blinks. She bleats once, then lowers her head in begrudging surrender. The herb woman hands the rosemary to one of the children and mutters, "Next time, hang this near the fence. She hates it, says it tastes like rules." You help right the basket and retrieve a few sad, damp turnips. A man nearby sighs and says, "Well, now the pickles are seasoned with drama." Another woman scoops the goat up, yes, just like that, and carries her away like a misbehaving toddler. Durna doesn't resist, but you get the sense she's planning something. In the aftermath, someone finds a jar of honey in the bushes, the one from earlier, now suspiciously empty. "It wasn't the goat," someone mutters. "Wasn't just the goat," another adds. You return to the beekeeper, who's still humming to his wax. He doesn't even glance up. Told you, the bees knew. As the sun climbs higher, the crowd disperses. Someone brings out a bowl of yogurt, mixed with honey and chopped pistachios. It's passed around with wooden spoons and exhausted laughter. You take a bite. It's sweet and tangy, creamy, and strangely calming. The goat, from a distance, watches with narrowed eyes. The path curves just beyond the pickled turnip puddle, and you follow it toward the edge of the village, where the land begins to rise in sun-drenched terraces. Figs hang low here, fat, soft, and ready to burst with sweetness. Their leaves spread wide like lazy green hands, casting pools of patchy shade across the dry soil. You duck under one of the larger trees, where a few children are climbing barefoot, balancing like tightrope walkers on branches thick as thighs. One girl dangles upside down, her legs wrapped expertly around a limb, and declares, "The best figs grow in secret." You ask what that means. She disappears into the foliage without answering. You've entered the fig grove now, a shaded cluster of trees older than anyone remembers. The figs here are of many kinds, green and gold, purple and dusky pink. Some are soft enough to fall with a whisper. Others cling stubbornly until you bribe them with gentle threats. You spot a boy perched on a low branch, cradling a basket and humming to himself. His tunic is stained with purple smudges. He glances at you. "Oh, want one?" You nod. He selects a fig with great ceremony, wipes it on his sleeve, and hands it over. It's still warm from the sun, its skin slightly split. You bite in, sweetness, rich and floral, with the soft crunch of teeny seeds and the faint tang of wildness. It tastes like the very idea of summer. The boy beams. That one grew on the stubborn tree. You ask what makes it stubborn. It only ripens when no one's looking. Of course it does. Beneath another tree, an older woman collects split figs from the ground into a shallow clay bowl. She's muttering to herself, counting something, or perhaps casting spells. As you pass, she says without looking up, "Bees are quieter when figs are sweet." You believe her. Fig trees, you soon learn, are revered here not just for their fruit, but for their personalities. Each tree has a name, not formal names, mind you, but nicknames based on behavior. There's Sleeps Late, whose fruit always ripens last, Tattletale, which creaks at the slightest wind, and Greedy, who drops figs only when no one's watching, but keeps growing more anyway. One tree is called the Judge. No one will say why. Historians still argue whether Anatolian figs were bred for specific uses, desserts, fermenting, or medicine, or if they were just allowed to do as they pleased. Based on this grove, the figs are clearly in charge. A girl emerges from behind a bush, with her cheeks full, hands sticky. "Don't eat the white ones unless you like buzzing," she warns, just as a bee circles your ear, inquisitive but polite. You nod solemnly and back away from the suspect fruit. In the distance, you hear flapping, you turn. A sparrow is engaged in an aerial duel with a boy holding a fig. The bird dives, chirps indignantly, and pecks the fig clean from his fingers before vanishing into the tree canopy. The boy gasps. "That's the third one this week," he cries. A second boy mutters, "It's the same bird. I know its face." A minor war has begun. The boys scheme, drawing elaborate plans in the dirt with fig stems. There is mention of traps, of disguises, of using decoy figs to confuse the enemy. You sit under sleep slate and watch as the plotting continues. One boy insists on naming the sparrow Olive, for irony's sake. You notice fig leaves being repurposed as hats, then shields. A child tapes 3 together and crafts a tiny cape. The sparrow returns, perches high, and surveys the scene with disdain. Eventually, peace is declared. The children redistribute their loot and gather under the largest tree, breaking open overripe figs and smearing them onto bread someone brought in a knotted cloth. You are handed a slice. It's messy, decadent, and full of the kind of joy that doesn't need permission. Someone begins singing. A simple tune, barely words, more like a lullaby for plants. One girl hums along, tapping a fig against her knee like a drum. A young boy approaches you with a serious look. "This is my tree," he says, placing a hand against a gnarled trunk. "It tells the truth." You ask what it said today. He nods gravely. "It said the lentils are late." You wonder if the tree speaks to the herb woman. Probably. As the sun shifts, so does the light, dappled gold through a canopy of whispering leaves. A soft breeze stirs the air, carrying the scent of sugar and soil and something almost floral, like the ghost of last year's festival. You watch as a fig drops silently to the ground. The boy picks it up, brushes it off, and hands it to the girl beside him. No words exchanged, just fruit and friendship. You lean back against Tattletale, who creaks in greeting, and close your eyes for a moment. The bees continue their sleepy circuits. The children laugh in a language older than textbooks. The sparrow returns, victorious, and the figs keep ripening, even when no one looks. You leave the fig grove with fingers sticky and sun-soaked, the air now cooling ever so slightly as afternoon creeps toward evening. The path ahead dips and winds behind the clustered stone homes, through a shaded alley where vines dangle from overhangs and geckos scurry along cracked walls. The scent of vinegar and old secrets starts to rise as you round a bend, and there it is, the pickle yard. It's not a formal place, this yard, more like a loose collection of pots, jars, and barrels, some buried to their necks in the ground, others balanced precariously on wooden crates or nestled between slabs of stone. The air smells pungent, a sharp, sour tang, layered with notes of garlic, fennel, and something possibly turnip adjacent. You pause before a particularly large clay jar that's been sealed with beeswax and a flat river stone. A faint bubble escapes from beneath the lid with a soft glorp, like it's exhaling in its sleep. A man nearby nods at it. That one's from last year, might be ready or might bite. You smile politely and move on. Pickling in this village isn't just food preservation. It's alchemy. It's family tradition. It's a competition. And it's apparently a source of occasional sabotage. 2 older women argue softly over a jar of pickled melon. One swears hers turned out crunchy and delightful. The other says it's soft, like regret. A third woman arrives with a bowl of pickled garlic cloves and offers a taste. You try one. It's bright, tart, and leaves a pleasant warmth in your chest. It also somehow clears your sinuses and your conscience. A cluster of younger children sit nearby, watching the bubbling jars like fortune tellers watching a crystal ball. One whispers, "If it floats, it's ready." Another counters, "If it explodes, it's cursed." You decide not to ask what happened last year. A man in a wide hat approaches with a gourd under one arm and a spoon in the other. He announces, "This is pickled squash. I made it myself. It contains flavors no one understands." A brave soul takes a bite. Silence. Then a thoughtful nod. "It tastes complicated." "Exactly," the man beams. You move toward a half-shaded corner where several jars are half dug into the ground. These are the ferments, the truly long-haul pickles. Turnips dyed shocking pink, carrots cut into coins, green beans that snap when stirred. Each jar is sealed with linen soaked in brine, tied with string, and labeled with symbols you can't decipher. One of the symbols looks like a goat. You take a cautious step back. A teenager explains helpfully, "That one was buried during the spring storm. We don't open it until someone solves the riddle." You glance at him. "There's a riddle?" He shrugs. "It's a metaphor? Probably." Historians still argue whether Anatolian pickling methods influenced the wider Mediterranean, or if they were a local response to fickle seasons and even more fickle livestock. Either way, the results are colorful, sharp, and slightly menacing in their confidence. You spot a small jar that seems to hum with anticipation. A woman uncorks it and offers you a slice of what she calls sour cucumber with summer memory. It's thin, translucent, and tastes like sunshine made snappy. You ask what's in the brine. She winks. "A secret, a mistake, and 2 figs." "Sure." At a nearby table, several villagers are arranging jars into a pyramid of pride. "The pickle tower," someone whispers. It's the annual centerpiece of the feast's first course, a precarious, slightly wobbling monument to fermentation and family drama. You admire it cautiously. A boy with vine leaves in his hair sidles up to you and offers a small clay bowl filled with chopped pickles mixed with herbs and yogurt. You take a bite. It's tangy, refreshing, with a strange but pleasant crunch. "It's a tasting spoon," he says, "for the undecided." A woman pulls out a jar of preserved lemons and slices one open. The scent is intense, salty, floral, with a citrus punch that hits the back of your throat like a compliment from an unexpected source. She lays the slices on a flatbread and passes you a piece. It's shocking, delicious, and makes your eyebrows briefly attempt escape. She cackles softly. You'll remember that one tomorrow. A man carrying a bowl of pickled green plums appears, offering them like candies. "They wake you up," he says. "You're already very awake." Nearby, someone shouts, "The goat's back." All heads turn. Durna, the infamous herb muncher, is tiptoeing, not even exaggerating, tiptoeing toward the ferment pots. One woman raises a ladle, another picks up a turnip like a weapon. Durna stops, stares, then slowly backs away into a bush. "Respect the pickles," someone yells after her. You sit for a while on a low stone wall, watching the jars bubble and settle like living things. The sun filters through the vines overhead, dappling the clay lids with gold and green. You wonder how many years of trial and error it took to make a gourd taste like mystery. Someone offers you a cup of pickle brine. It's chilled. You sip, your taste buds dance, retreat, and then reconsider. It's sharp, bracing, and oddly energizing. It also makes your mouth say, "I could pickle something." Everyone nearby nods solemnly, the first sign of belonging. You leave the yard with a faint tang on your lips and the knowledge that somewhere, in some buried jar, a cucumber is becoming legend. You follow the gentle slope down from the pickle yard, winding between low stone fences and stray chickens, until the smell of milk and hay wraps around you like a wool blanket left out in the sun. The air here is thick with the tang of dairy, warm curd, fresh cream, and just a hint of what can only be described as cow drama. Ahead lies the dairy circle, a ring of shaded stalls, half-open huts, and large clay pots lined up like sleepy soldiers. A half-dozen women work here, sleeves rolled, hair tied, hands moving with the practiced grace of those who've churned since childhood. Every movement is deliberate, every noise, the clink of ladles, the swish of cream in a jar, the occasional sigh, feels like a note in a well-rehearsed song. You approach cautiously because you've heard rumors of the cow. She stands in the center of the circle like she owns it, and let's be honest, she probably does. Large, dark-eyed, and muscular in that way that suggests she could flatten a cart if mildly inconvenienced. She chews slowly and stares at you like she knows what you said about barley 3 sections ago. "That's Tali," says a girl beside you, elbow deep in yogurt. "She once kicked a man into a fig tree." You don't doubt it. The dairy women move around her with a mix of affection and fear, as if she's part deity, part colleague, part unpredictable aunt. She gets the best feed. She gets her ears scratched with rosemary twigs. She gets to decide when milking begins. Today, apparently, she's feeling generous. One woman, Sema, wipes her hands on her apron and beckons you forward. Come see. The yogurt's behaving. You peer into a deep ceramic bowl where thick, creamy yogurt swirls under a layer of sheep's wool cheesecloth. It smells tangy, fresh, and a little bit like a meadow. She offers you a spoonful. You accept. It's rich, cool, and faintly herbal, like the sheep grazed through someone's spice garden. You feel your shoulders relax. "That sheep eats better than I do," mutters an old man from the sidelines, sipping from a clay mug. Next, you're shown the soft cheeses, rounds of white curd straining in linen, triangles wrapped in fig leaves, and a mysterious glob known only as grandmother's surprise. You don't ask. Sema explains the process. Milk is warmed, stirred with fig sap or rennet, then left to settle in the cool shade with a few whispered blessings. It's aged depending on the moon, the season, and someone's moods. Historians still argue whether the dairy techniques of ancient Anatolia were borrowed from surrounding cultures or developed independently, but here the argument doesn't matter. Cheese is made, and that is holy. Behind one stall, a teenager is experimenting. She's whipped yogurt into a spreadable fluff and added crushed dried mint, sumac, and what might be lemon peel. She offers you a taste on a flatbread corner. Your mouth puckers, smiles, and then relaxes into a gentle, it's a dip, she says, or maybe a potion. Someone nearby drops a ladle into a pot. Everyone flinches. Tali turns her head and moos ominously. "I swear she understands grammar," Sema mutters, handing you a chunk of soft cheese rolled in cracked pepper and dried thyme. You take a bite. It's creamy, punchy, and vaguely addictive. A cat appears at your feet and meows with professional interest. One of the other women is stirring a clay pot slowly, clockwise only, because counterclockwise is for cursing. It's iron, the drinkable yogurt thinned with water and salt, the preferred companion to meals and dramatic family discussions. You're given a cup. It's cold, frothy, and tastes like the kind of refreshment that could fix a bad mood or a bad lentil stew. Someone nearby opens a sealed jar and scoops out a scoop of strained cheese preserved in olive oil and bay leaves. It smells sharp and ancient, like it was whispered into being by a cheese philosopher. You try a bit on bread, the bay leaf lingers, warm and herbal, and the cheese dissolves like a sigh. A small crowd gathers as the butter churning begins. A large goatskin bag is hung from a beam and swung back and forth like a sleepy pendulum. A boy is assigned to rock it gently like it's a fussy baby. The women laugh, is singing a slow song about cows, clouds, and the price of garlic. You can't catch all the words, but the rhythm sinks into your bones. Tally shifts slightly, kicks at a fly, and huffs like she's the true architect of this operation. You sit on a low stool, chewing the last bite of her cheese, and watch the butter separate. Yellow flecks begin to form, rising to the surface like gossip. It's strained, washed, then molded into small bricks and patted gently into shape. Each brick is wrapped in waxed fig leaf and sealed with a thumbprint. Sema hands you one. This one's lucky, she says. Don't ask why. A goat sneezes. The cat yawns. The breeze shifts. Somewhere a sparrow lands on a pail and looks judgmental. You stand to leave. Tali watches you. You bow slightly. She does not return the gesture, but you feel acknowledged. As you walk away, the butter churn creaks. The songs continue, and the air stays heavy with milk, mint, and unspoken cow wisdom. You meander down a path paved with the soft crunch of dry grass and olive pits, the scent of dairy still lingering as a creamy memory. Beyond the dairy stalls, past a low wall covered in sun-bleached murals of goats, grapevines, and implausibly muscular farmers, lies a curious little square where no one quite seems to be working, but everyone is definitely busy. Here is the preparation zone for what the villagers lovingly call the fiddly things. Not the great stews or the grand roasts. Those come later. These are the appetizers, garnishes, handheld bites, and of course, the mysterious little pastries that may or may not explode when bitten. You're intrigued. A group of women and two extremely overconfident uncles sit around a wide cloth spread on the ground, each with a small pile of dough, chopped herbs, cheese, dried fruits, or nuts at their station. They don't measure, they glance, they don't time, they feel. It's artistry, stubbornness, and some light family sabotage all rolled into flaky triangles. You take a seat on the edge. Immediately, someone hands you dough. No introduction necessary. A woman with flour on her elbow nods. Fold, not roll. Pinch, not press. Breathe with your eyebrows. You attempt to follow, mostly succeeding. The one corner of your pastry looks like it's trying to escape. The filling options are endless. There's crushed chickpeas spiced with cumin and garlic, a mixture of walnut and pomegranate molasses, mashed lentils with mint and chopped scallions, and a delightful mess of raisins, goat cheese, and something labeled surprise in chalk on a rock. Historians still argue whether Anatolian mezes were shaped more by trade or by the sheer need to use up leftovers creatively. Regardless, these little dishes often stole the spotlight at feasts and ruined friendships when someone hoarded the sesame crackers. You try one of the triangular pastries, freshly fried in a shallow pan of bubbling oil heated by a brazier. It's crisp, golden, and suspiciously silent until you bite down. A tiny pop, a puff of hot air. The cheese and herbs inside melt on your tongue like a soft argument. Too much dill, one of the uncles says. Despite not being asked, his niece throws a grape at him. It misses, barely. Nearby, another group is preparing what appears to be a grape leaf relay. A long table, a plank of wood over 2 amphorae, hosts a team of rollers working quickly. Each leaf is brushed with oil, placed vein side up, filled with a spoonful of rice, pine nuts, and spices, then rolled tightly into neat little cylinders. Like a tiny scroll of gossip, someone says. You nod. One girl hands you a finished one. Eat it sideways, never from the end. You do. It's tangy, tender, with just the right hit of cinnamon and lemon. You try another. This one's spicier. Someone giggles. They mix the batches again. An elder sighs. Now we don't know which ones cry and which ones kick. Further down, a boy is assembling skewers, small chunks of marinated vegetables, cheese cubes, and dried apricots soaked in vinegar. He calls them walking snacks. A noble pursuit. He offers you one with pride. It tastes like contrast and summer. At another cloth, 2 women are shaping fritters, crushed lentils mixed with garlic, cumin, and what looks like chopped fig leaves. The batter sizzles when dropped into oil. The smell is hypnotic. Don't eat more than 3, a man warns. Not because they're heavy, because you'll start preaching. You eat 2, begin formulating a theory about lunar cycles and cooking times. Behind them, another team is focused on flatbreads layered with za'atar, sumac onions, and lemon zest. These are rolled into tight spirals and baked on flat stones warmed in the sun. One stone is labeled, "Do not sit, sacred flatbread zone." You make a note. A young boy with a determined scowl is grating cheese over a bowl of chopped fresh herbs. He adds crushed olives, a squirt of something from a leathery pouch, and mixes it with his hands. What is it? You ask. He shrugs. A spread for toast or vengeance. You try it on a piece of toasted bread. It's punchy, salty, herbal with a citrus sting. You could eat it by the spoonful. You probably shouldn't. You glance around. Everywhere, people are dipping, folding, spreading, and taste testing. Arguments bloom and fade like summer clouds. That one's too wet. No, you're too dry. My grandmother made this recipe. She also put salt in tea. That was on purpose. There's laughter, there's chewing, there's a growing pile of perfectly shaped, imperfectly uniform, utterly mouth-watering meze bites, waiting to be arranged later in proud little spirals. In the corner, someone's pickling radishes in honeyed vinegar just to see what happens. Could be genius, could be betrayal. Another villager walks by with a tray of chilled yogurt drinks laced with cucumber and mint. To soothe your sins, she says. You accept one. It's light, calming, with a coolness that spreads from your tongue to your toes. A sparrow lands on a windowsill above and eyes your fritter. You eat it quickly, with a sense of triumph. As the sun begins its lazy tilt toward the horizon, the fiddly things are wrapped, stacked, and transferred carefully to wide trays. Fingers are licked. Opinions are voiced. Pastries are labeled mild, bold, and pray first. You rise, stomach humming, hands dusted with flour, and heart warmed by the quiet joy of collective culinary mischief. And just before you go, someone hands you a little parcel, 3 unknown pastries wrapped in fig leaves and tied with mint string. Midnight snacks, she says. One is sweet, one is spicy, one is an apology. You don't ask for details. With your mint-tied mystery parcel tucked securely in your pouch, you wander past the outer edge of the prep circle where things grow quieter, not duller, just more deliberate. Here lie the ingredients of heat and transformation. Spices, oils, pulses, dried goods laid out like offerings to a stove that hasn't yet been lit. It's the calm before the big pans come out, before the fire starts licking pots and bubbling clay pots whisper their secrets. A tall, slender man wearing a tunic stained in 5 unidentifiable hues oversees the spice table. His name is Iskender, or so he says. He smells like cumin and ambition, and he's currently grinding something bright orange in a mortar big enough to serve soup in. You greet him. He nods in acknowledgement, then tosses a pinch of the powder into the air with a flair that suggests this spice may be watching. Paprika, he says. But not just any paprika. This one was sun-dried in the shadow of a jealous mountain. You wait, but he offers no further explanation. The table before him is an aromatic mosaic, shallow bowls of turmeric, sumac, coriander seed, dried mint, thyme, fenugreek, fennel, cracked black pepper, and a green powder labeled only with a question mark. The wind is full of their perfumes, and your nose begins to itch in anticipation. Iskender sniffs a bowl, frowns, then tosses the contents over his shoulder. Wrong mood, he mutters. A woman nearby is organizing pulses by color and cook time. Lentils in shades of ochre and red, black-eyed peas, yellow split peas, and something round and gray-green that smells oddly like pine needles. She sorts like a jeweler, measuring by weight, hue, and instinct. Don't mix the moody ones, she warns. Historians still argue whether Anatolia's legendary spice blends were shaped more by Silk Road exchanges or the sheer stubborn creativity of home cooks. What is clear here and now is that no 2 spice blends are alike, and everyone insists theirs is the one that sings. You're handed a small clay spoon with something yellow on it. Lentil blend, Iskender says. It'll either make you weep or dance. You taste it. It's earthy, layered, a bit lemony, and somehow nostalgic for a life you never lived. Your tongue warms. You feel smarter. Slightly, a girl offers you a bite of rice, soaked in saffron water and stirred with cloves and crushed pistachios. It's delicate but confident, like a polite rebellion. She beams. For the rice tower tomorrow, I'll hide almonds in the middle. You ask if that's tradition. No, she says. It's mischief. A man next to her is shaving dried orange peel into a bowl of cracked wheat. He adds rose petals, stirs, sniffs, then shrugs. Not fragrant enough. This needs more history. You blink, he clarifies. Dates, preferably gossipy ones. You nod slowly, further down the path, past the tables. 3 massive clay amphorae sit half-sunken in the ground. A small crowd gathers around one, which is being unsealed with great ceremony. Inside, a stew of slow-cooked chickpeas, roasted garlic, fermented onions, and what may be dried apricot slivers. The scent is deep, almost musical. This one was started last solstice, says a woman with a spoon longer than her arm. We kept it alive with good thoughts and olive oil. She offers you a small bowl. It's warm, complex, and tastes like time, like patience boiled down to a comforting hug. You close your eyes and smile. Somewhere nearby, someone yells, the goat's eyeing the cumin again. There's a commotion. Durna, the chaos goat, is once again expressing her culinary opinions by attempting to nibble an unattended fennel jar. She's gently guided away with a broom and a curse spoken in 3 dialects. You return to the spice tables, where Iskender is now blending what he calls feast fire into a pouch. He hands it to you without a word. Inside, chili flakes, dried mint, cracked salt, crushed fig seeds, and a few dark strands of something he won't name. Add to stew or enemies. Across from him, a boy is toasting sesame and nigella seeds on a flat stone, fanning them with a grape leaf. The scent is nutty and deep. Curling into your memory, he sprinkles a pinch onto a spoon of soft cheese and hands it to you. It crackles faintly on your tongue. The pulses are being soaked in wide bowls now. Lentils going first, then the larger beans, each under a linen cover tied with twine. The linen's not for looks, one woman says. It keeps out the wrong dreams. There's something sacred in this waiting, in this quiet science of soaking, blending, and watching. The energy here isn't loud. It simmers, like everything else soon will. The dried goods are labeled with charcoal on wood. Kind lentils, lazy barley, smug beans. You point at the last one. The sorter nods. They never cook evenly, always think they know best. Even the sacks of salt are arranged by personality. There's flaky salt for finishing, crushed rock salt for pickling, and a mysterious blue-gray pile that someone claims was whispered to by moonlight. You don't ask for specifics. You pause by the last table, where a grandmother is gently folding dried rose petals into a cloth sachet. She presses it to your palm. For your pillow, she says, so you dream the flavors in order. You tuck it away, already breathing in the soft, powdery scent of old love and leftover stew. The sun is lower now, shadows stretch longer, the amphorae are covered again. The spices are stored in tight-sealed jars, their contents still humming softly. The pulses settle into their soak. You step away, head swimming with scents, fingers dusted with turmeric, and the quiet promise of tomorrow's fire. By now, the heat of the day has softened, and you follow a winding trail of laughter and mild panic to the village's central square, where the true chaos of feast preparation reveals itself, not with fire or knives, but with onions, or rather, without them. You arrive to the clamor of organized confusion. Large cooking pots sit ready, vegetables chopped with the speed of gossip, herbs bundled with twine and hung like festive garlands. But one thing is very clearly missing: the onions. Where are the onions? Someone asks, for the third time in as many minutes. No one knows. The crates are empty. The baskets are bare. Even the goat looks innocent, which is suspicious in itself. They were right here this morning, insists an older man holding a ladle like it's a compass. Next to the squash, I saw them. They were real. Are you sure you didn't dream them? A woman replies, brushing olive oil over eggplant slices without looking up. Another voice mutters, "This happened once in the year of the sour apricots." Someone else gasps. Despite the absence of onions, cooking continues. There's just no time to waste. Fires are started in stone hearths, and flat metal pans are laid out, heating in anticipation. The air begins to smell toasty and promising. Pots are filled with lentils, chickpeas, and rice, kissed with oil, stirred with purpose. But the onion gap, it's noticeable. You're handed a spoon of red lentils bubbling in stock. It's fine. Good, even, but not finished. It's like a song missing a chorus. The cook sighs. You volunteer to help search? It's the least you can do after sampling 3 spoonfuls of chickpea stew. Your quest for the onions takes you behind storage sheds and into half-buried clay bins. One boy swears he saw them under the baker's bench. Another claims the herb woman borrowed them to test a theory. A third offers the theory that the onions are hiding on purpose. You pass the dairy circle where Tali, the cow, watches you. Her eyes suggest she knows the truth, but she will not speak. Eventually, you reach the courtyard where the judge's niece is hanging linens. You ask if she's seen onions. She lifts a corner of cloth. Beneath it, 3 small onions, like contraband. I took some for dyeing, she whispers. They make the prettiest golden stain. You return with the stolen onions and declares your find. There's cheering of the mild village sort, a few claps and some raised eyebrows of approval, one child doing a victory hop. The onions are sliced, thin, whispery slivers tossed into hot oil. The smell blooms instantly, a wave of savory warmth that rises like steam and relief. Historians still argue whether onions in ancient Anatolia were a primary flavor base or a garnish reserved for the wealthy. Here, it seems, they are both essential and sacred. Without them, no feast dish is truly complete. With them, the pots begin to sing. You help stir a stew of lentils and chopped greens now shimmering with onion sweetness. The pot beside it holds roasted eggplant, yogurt, and mint, cooling, smoky, and bright. A third bubbles with cracked wheat, garlic, and apricot. The spoon nearly melts in your hand. Around the fires, there's a rhythm to the chaos. People pass bowls, season from memory, taste without hesitation. Salt is added in pinches. Lemon is squeezed without measuring. If something's too bland, someone sings at it. That usually helps. You spot a girl brushing olive oil onto flatbreads before placing them on a heated rock slab. They bubble and blister quickly, puffing up in places and crisping at the edges. A passing elder nods in approval. That's a bread with confidence, she says. The recovered onions are now working overtime. They're caramelizing into sauces, thickening soups, crowning roasted vegetables, and even being folded into a rice pilaf with pine nuts and cinnamon. You try a spoonful. It tastes like something you should eat while telling secrets. Someone nearby hands you a grilled pepper stuffed with cheese and chopped greens. Don't trust its size, he warns. You bite, and the pepper reveals a gentle heat and a bold little punch at the end. Another person brings a dish of slow-cooked white beans in tomato and onion sauce. We call this the apology. It's what you serve when you mess something else up. It's comforting, like a hug in bean form. The children are running around again, this time pretending to be chefs. One wears a pot lid as a hat and wields a ladle like a staff of power. Another waves a bunch of parsley in the air like it's a victory flag. Beware the burnt rice, someone yells. The adults laugh. One woman stirs her pot dramatically. My rice burns for no one, she declares. Meanwhile, a bowl of charred onions is passed around. A dark, sweet, sticky garnish meant for the final lamb dish. It tastes like campfires and sugar and secrets. In one corner, a man is making something mysterious. Thin wheat noodles, quickly pan-fried, then folded into soft eggplant rounds and drizzled with yogurt and spiced butter. It's called Folded Whispers, and it is absurdly good. As the sun dips lower and the fires crackle louder, the square becomes a performance. Smoke rises in graceful ribbons. Steam dances from every pot. The clatter of spoons, laughter, and sizzling fat blend into a soft, delicious soundtrack. You pause, bowl in hand, onion-laced stew warming your palms. Somewhere nearby, the goat bleats, probably jealous. There's a lull, brief but full-bodied, where the pots bubble quietly, the cutting boards rest, and the cooks sip from cups of cucumber yogurt with satisfaction and the faint glint of mischief. You think for a moment that peace might settle over the square, but then someone, somewhere, dares to ask the question, are we using red lentils this year or green? The silence that follows is immediate, dense, fragrant with tension. A woman chopping parsley stills her knife midair. A boy stirring rice freezes. An old man frowns so deeply, his forehead appears to fold into itself. And just like that, it begins the very serious lentil debate. I told you, says a baker from behind a heap of flatbread. Red lentils are for guests, green lentils are for family, and we are family. Except for your cousin, someone mutters. She's barely related. You sink onto a woven mat at the edge of the fire circle, nibbling from a bowl of mixed lentils as the arguments ripple through the air like the scent of a burnt onion no one wants to take responsibility for. A teenage girl stands and declares, "Split lentils cook faster. We don't want to be here all night again." A grandmother shakes her head slowly, solemnly. Faster is not always better. Sometimes fast lentils lead to slow regrets. Someone nearby whispers, "That's what she said when her son eloped with the spice merchant." "He cooked with instant couscous," someone hisses, gasped all around. Historians still argue whether lentils were primarily a peasant food in Anatolia or whether they held special ceremonial value. In this village, clearly they are both humble, essential, and entirely capable of causing a feud over texture. You're handed two bowls, one with red lentils, smooth and creamy like a savory porridge kissed by turmeric, the other with green lentils, firm, toothsome, and simmered with carrots and garlic in a thick broth. Both are excellent. Both have loud supporters. Tsugit. You taste again, still excellent. You wisely say nothing. A middle-aged man appears carrying a third option. Black lentils in a tomato base, slightly spicy, studded with caramelized onion. Compromise, he announces, or at least a distraction. The crowd murmurs. Some approve, some scoff. One woman narrows her eyes. Black lentils are dramatic. He shrugs. So am I. A girl nearby with fig jam on her cheek offers another idea. Blend the lentils, layer them, create a mosaic of legumes, each with their own stage. Her voice is soft, but her spoon is confident. She builds a little tower on her plate, red on the bottom, green in the middle, black on top, and sprinkles toasted seeds like a flourish. Lentil diplomacy, she whispers. Someone in the back applauds quietly. You try the combination. It's bold, complex, and slightly mischievous. You think you can hear the onions cheering. Still, not everyone agrees. One elder argues that green lentils hold up best in stews, meant to sit overnight. Another claims red lentils carry the spirit of summer. A boy yells, "The goat ate my sample." Everyone pauses. Durna, of course, is nearby, chewing something with smug efficiency. She voted green. Someone sighs. You glance toward the large communal pot set to receive the final lentil dish. It waits patiently, as if aware of the drama and quietly amused. A few spoons dip in now and then. Adjustments are made. Lemon is added, mint ducked a whisper of clove. Someone suggests a pinch of sugar. Another adds vinegar instead. Balance, they say in unison. The compromise, finally, is poetic. A layered lentil stew, gently swirled but not fully mixed. Red, green, and black each have their moment, mingling just enough to be polite. It simmers with resolve, garnished with garlic oil and a few crisp shallots. The debate settles like foam on a pot. Everyone returns to their tasks, slightly hungry, slightly smug. You chew thoughtfully on a lentil fritter, spiced with cumin and coriander, served with yogurt and a drizzle of fig molasses. It's both crunchy and comforting. A solid vote for team all lentils matter. In the quieter corners of the square, smaller lentil dishes appear. A mash of yellow lentils with roasted eggplant and thyme. A soup of lentils, barley, and chopped greens, rich enough to be its own argument. Little lentil dumplings simmered in spiced broth, served by a girl who insists they help with dreams. You taste each one, you begin to believe her. Above you, dusk is drawing the sky into shades of rose and slate. The fires crackle louder now, hungrier. The lentil stew is ladled into wide bowls and set near the bread, waiting for the feast's first scoop. Someone offers a toast, not with wine, but with ladles raised high. To lentils, she says, in the arguments they inspire. A chorus of spoons clinks in agreement. You lean back, belly gently full, eyes drowsy from spice and laughter. The goat snorts softly nearby. The lentils, somewhere in your gut, hold a parliament. As twilight stains the hills in lavender and gold, the pulse of the village shifts. The heavy work of cooking slows. Pots left to bubble on their own, trays covered in cloths, aromas mingling like gossip on a breeze. But activity continues, redirected, reimagined. Now comes a quieter frenzy, dressing. You follow the stream of villagers toward the old well at the center of the square. It's not just for water now. Its stone lip has become a vanity table, a flower shop, and a battlefield of last-minute accessory swaps. Linens in every shade of the Anatolian palette flap, from laundry lines and wooden racks, sun-dyed ochres, dusty indigos, warm creams, and apricot pinks softened by years of wear and wash. A mother brushes dust from her daughter's tunic, adjusting the hem like it's a prayer. A teenager sneaks fig leaves into her braided hair. One child proudly wears a belt of dried herbs, aromatic and oddly crunchy. You're handed a simple tunic, a soft linen thing that smells faintly of lavender and thyme. It fits just fine. A scarf is draped around your shoulders, woven with yellow threads and embroidered with pomegranate seeds. Real ones, you don't question it. It's for luck, someone says, and snacks. Nearby, the Floral Crown Committee is in full bloom. A long table is strewn with piles of greenery: laurel, basil, fig leaves, rosemary, wild daisies, marigold petals, olive branches, and, yes, onions. Decorative this time. Probably. The rules are simple. Everyone makes one, everyone wears one, and everyone will pretend not to care when the voting begins. You take a seat beside a girl twisting vines into a halo. She hands you a sprig of mint. For clarity, she says. You begin your crown, or you try. The vines tangle. The rosemary pricks your thumb. Your first attempt looks more like a confused nest than anything regal. A man across the table raises his eyebrows, the wild chaos aesthetic, bold. A grandmother adds a daisy to her crown and says, sometimes the wild ones win. Historians still argue whether floral crowns in Anatolia were symbols of fertility, festivity, or simply an excuse to smell like something pleasant during long feasts. Regardless of origin, tonight their fashion and status and personal expression, you watch as the crowns evolve. One is all olive branches, sleek and subtle. Another leans dramatic with pomegranate blooms and bright red pepper curls. A teenager's version includes feathers, a strip of bark, and a pebble balanced precariously on the front. She calls it Earth. A small boy wears 3 sprigs of parsley and a beet. His family is proud. You try again, this time with more intention. A laurel base, woven through with thyme, a splash of golden marigold, and one shy sprig of lavender tucked in the back for humility. You're told it suits you. You choose to believe it. A whisper passes through the crowd. The goat has entered the competition. Indeed, Derna stands at the edge of the circle, wearing a shockingly tasteful wreath of fig leaves and basil. It is, admittedly, well balanced. A woman mutters, "She had help." A child giggles and throws her a cherry. The goat accepts with grace. Just before sunset, the judging begins. No prizes, of course, only glory. 3 elders pass slowly along the line, examining each head with solemn nods and occasional whispers. They pause at yours. One leans in. Lavender was my mother's favorite. The second sniffs, balanced, quiet, thoughtful. The third shrugs, could use more parsley. Durna wins third place. The teenager with the bark crown takes second, and first goes to a woman wearing what appears to be a full herb garden on her head, complete with live bees. No one argues. As the sun kisses the horizon, the village gathers in a circle near the fountain. The floral crowns glow in the low light, casting leafy shadows on smiling faces. Someone begins to hum, a soft tune, wordless and low. Others join in. It's not a song, not exactly, more like a shared exhale, a winding down before the feast. A man lights a single oil lamp and lifts it high. The flame flickers against his crown of bay leaves and soft dill. "Let's eat," he says, before the goats decide they've earned a seat. Laughter follows. The crowd disperses to the long wooden tables being set near the fires. You reach up and adjust your crown. A rosemary twig tickles your ear. It feels just right. You walk toward the feast with thyme in your hair, laurel on your brow, and the scent of marigolds brushing softly at your cheek. The tables stretch end to end like a winding story written in wood and linen, lined with ceramic bowls, copper trays, and drinking vessels carved from bone and stone. Lanterns hang from olive branches above, flickering gently in the warm breeze, while the first stars blink quietly into the indigo sky. You slide into a seat beside an elderly woman with laugh lines deep as vineyard furrows. Her hands rest on a plate of flatbread. She looks at you and says, "This is the good bread. I bribed the baker with lemon peel." You nod respectfully. To your left, 2 boys are competing to see who can balance the most olives on a skewer without spilling their drink. They're tagged at 4 olives each and intense eye contact. Further down the table, a girl is gently shooing a cat away from a pile of fig-stuffed pastries. The cat is both unmoved and persistent. And just beyond, Durna the goat is sitting, yes, sitting on a stool. No one remembers inviting her. No one dares to ask her to leave. The dishes begin to arrive, carried by a parade of proud hands and steady feet. Clay bowls of lentil stew, still steaming and rich with caramelized onion. Plates of yogurt, thick dips swirled with herbs and lemon zest. Trays of roasted eggplant, charred at the edges and melting in the middle. The air thickens with spice and possibility. You're past a skewer of grilled peaches, brushed with honey and thyme. The sweetness hits first, then the whisper of smoke. Someone grins. "Summer on a stick," they call it. The girl beside you has created a mountain of flatbread layered with spicy tomato paste, crumbled cheese, and pickled greens. "I call it the wedge of hunger," she says. "No one leaves hungry." You believe her? One by one, more dishes find their way to the table. Chickpeas roasted with coriander and tossed with dried apricot bits, fritters of lentil and grated squash, dipped in garlic yogurt, stuffed grape leaves, delicate and glistening, arranged in a spiral like snail shells. You reach for a handful of olives marinated in orange peel, cracked black pepper, and a hint of something floral, rosewater, maybe, or mischief. Historians still argue whether the Anatolian summer feast was a formal religious ceremony or simply an excuse to show off your neighbor's tomato salad. But tonight, the only belief that matters is the joy of sharing what your hands have made. Someone lifts a cup of cold ayran, the yogurt drink salty and frothy. To the cook who forgot the cumin and invented something better, they toast. Everyone cheers. You sip your own cup, cool, tangy, and somehow grounding, like your tongue just exhaled. At the center of the table, a massive round loaf of bread is pulled apart by 3 generations of hands. It steams as it opens, revealing a filling of onions, greens, and chopped herbs bound with soft cheese. A child looks amazed. It's like a bread secret. Beside it, a salad of chopped cucumber, tomato, mint, and sumac sparkles with lemon juice and olive oil. It crunches brightly against your teeth, a refreshing counterpoint to the roasted richness piling onto your plate. And there, at last, the layered lentil dish. A scoop lands before you, red, green, black, all in harmony now, garnished with crisp shallots and fresh parsley. You dig in, the flavors sing, the arguments are forgiven. Until next year, someone mutters, a spoonful of rice pilaf finds you next, studded with almonds, flecked with saffron, kissed with something sweet and mysterious. You close your eyes and taste the layers, comfort, celebration, nostalgia for a time you've never known, but somehow remember. Across the table, a man fans himself with a fig leaf. I ate too fast, he says. I regret nothing. Someone slips you a pastry stuffed with goat cheese and dates. It's warm, flaky, and tastes like bedtime stories told over embers. The girl with the herb crown has made a platter of grilled zucchini, rolled around soft cheese and chopped olives. They're green scrolls, she says, for the table's wisdom. You eat one. It tastes both wise and slightly sassy. There's movement at the head of the table. An elder stands, a hush falls, not solemn, just respectful. He raises a bowl of soup, clear broth, the floating lentils, a sprig of rosemary. To those who stirred with love, even when tired, to the fire that cooked without complaint, to the goat who only knocked over 2 pickle jars, and to us, still hungry, still hopeful. A wave of clinks, spoons against bowls, fingers tapping cups. The feast resumes louder now, warmer. Laughter spills into the evening, like wine poured with a generous hand. You lean back for a moment, bowl in lap. The scents of herbs and roasted vegetables swirling lazily in the night air. The sky is deeper now, the stars brighter, the table endless. And somewhere, from the direction of the pickle yard, the faintest glorp of a fermenting jar offers its own sleepy toast. Your plate is cleared, but your belly is not. That apparently is the trick of an Anatolian summer feast. Just when you think you're full, a new smell meanders past your nose, and your appetite returns like a child catching a second wind before bedtime. Now comes what the locals call the roaming trays. They appear from all directions, trays carried by wandering hands, each bearing some new delight or dangerous curiosity. A young man balances a copper plate filled with sizzling cheese, browned at the edges, bubbling like molten gold. He sets it down beside you with a proud grin. This one sings, if you listen close. You lean in. There it is. A gentle hiss, a tiny crackle, the sound of comfort slowly undoing itself in heat. Next comes a woman with a shallow clay dish of stuffed onions. Yes, onions, roasted until their layers surrender to sweetness, filled with a mixture of rice, herbs, currants, and pine nuts. The first bite dissolves before you chew. Like savory candy, she says. A group of children parade through with a tray of skewered mushrooms, each one dipped in oil and grilled with sprigs of thyme pressed into their caps. They offer them like sacred relics. You accept with due reverence. Durna the goat attempts to intercept the mushroom tray. A girl redirects her with a polite but firm rosemary wand. Durna gets her own tray, someone says. Of course she does. One tray offers roasted quail eggs, dusted in sumac and speared with toothpicks carved from olive branches. Another holds triangles of fried bread brushed with garlic oil and dipped in whipped cheese. Someone sets down a plate of roasted figs, halved and pressed flat, then drizzled with molasses and fresh mint. You take one. Your eyes close. You are transported to a dream where everything is soft, warm, and slightly sticky. Across the table, a woman is slicing what appears to be a giant turnip, layered with slices of cooked beet and goat cheese. She hands out small squares, like a magician sharing secrets. We call this the stack of doubt, she explains. It always tastes better than it looks. It does. Next, someone offers you a cup of warm broth poured over stale bread cubes with chickpeas and garlic. Night soup, they whisper, to calm the stomach and the heart. It's gentle and deeply soothing. You consider asking for a second. A tray of hand pies makes the rounds. Some are savory, lamb with mint, lentils with lemon zest. Others are sweet, walnut and fig, or apricot with a dash of black pepper. Each has a tiny stamp pressed into the crust, a leaf, a goat, a swirl, a question mark. You're told it's tradition, and also a warning. You bite into one marked with a swirl. It's goat cheese and pomegranate. A bold pairing. You are changed. Historians still argue whether Anatolia's tray service during feasts was a practical solution for large crowds or a deliberate form of culinary theater. Here, it feels like both. You never know what's coming. You only know you want more. Someone carries by a sizzling pan of grape leaves, fried until crisp, like little sails. A boy says, that carries salt and crunch. He's not wrong. You nibble on one while sipping cold tamarind juice from a clay cup etched with stars. The flavor is tart, smoky, and wakes up corners of your tongue you hadn't visited since the fig grove. A tray of pickled carrots appears, then vanishes, then reappears. It's unclear if the tray is enchanted or just popular. At some point, you are handed a grilled onion, brushed with butter, and wrapped in a grape leaf. Eat it like an apple, the woman says. You do. It's absurdly good. Then comes the mystery tray. Everyone leans in, no one speaks. It's covered in linen, and as the cloth is removed, a quiet "oh" ripples through the crowd. It holds one dish, thin slices of roasted eggplant rolled around mashed lentils and garnished with preserved lemon. The plate rests on a large laurel leaf. The aroma is smoky, citrusy, and proud. You taste. Your eyes widen. The tray bearer leans down. It's my grandmother's. She haunts it if we change a single spice. Fair. Somewhere to your right, an argument begins over who invented the chickpea pancake. To your left, someone slips you a tiny date stuffed with cheese and dipped in honeyed vinegar. It tastes like memory and daring. The roaming continues. Dishes appear like old friends, comforting and surprising in equal measure. You can't track them all. You stop trying. You eat, you smile, you hum between bites. Eventually, someone taps a spoon to a cup, a signal. The roaming trays begin to retreat, vanishing like fireflies. The final offering is simple, a bowl of roasted almonds with sea salt and rosemary. The crunch is gentle, the salt just enough. The rosemary grounding. You lean back, belly stretched, eyes drowsy, senses full. Around you, others do the same, lounging, laughing, patting their stomachs like victorious generals of indulgence. And somewhere in the shadows, Durna licks her lips and eyes a tray of forgotten mushrooms. You've just settled into the kind of satisfied stillness that only arrives after 17 kinds of legumes and 3 accidental desserts when the music begins. Soft at first, like a question whispered into a quiet room, a single flute, its notes trailing through the warm night air like smoke ribbons. You glance up. On a raised stone platform, under a crooked olive tree, adorned with lanterns, the musicians gather. One man tunes a long-necked lute, his fingers delicate, deliberate. A girl holds a reed pipe to her lips and closes her eyes, drawing breath like she's sipping something ancient. A drummer, with a frame drum, taps experimentally, then grins as the rhythm catches like a spark on dray tinder. The village begins to lean in. Some stand, some sway from their seats. Children circle in barefoot loops, their laughter underscoring the opening melody. A woman beside you nudges your shoulder and murmurs, "Don't pretend you weren't hoping for a little music." You weren't, but now you are. The tune grows, slow and winding, something between lullaby and celebration. The flute trills upward, the lute dances beneath it, and the drum gives the rhythm its heartbeat. The music doesn't demand movement. It invites it gently, like an old friend patting the space beside them on a bench. And soon enough, the dancing begins. First, the elders, of course. A woman in a faded tunic steps forward with the grace of wind over water. Her hands rise, fingers flick like olive leaves. Her feet trace a slow pattern in the dust. A man joins her, mirroring her steps with a dignity only age and well-fed joints can provide. The crowd claps, soft, respectful, a pulse of approval. Next come the younger dancers, spirals and spins, loops and lines, not choreographed but understood, passed down not through instructions, but by watching, mimicking our remembering. You're pulled gently to your feet by a teenager crowned in fennel and mystery. "Come," she says. "You've eaten, you've earned it." You step into the circle, the dust cool beneath your soles. The drum thrums like a second heartbeat in your chest. The steps are simple. Step, sway, step again, turn. Your body remembers something it never learned. A man shouts something in old Anatolian, maybe encouragement, maybe a warning about dancing too close to Derna. The goat, you notice, is swaying in place, unclear whether she's dancing or digesting. The music shifts into a new rhythm. The drum sharpens, the lute picks up speed, the energy lifts. Someone claps above their head, someone else sings. No words, just vowel sounds stretched into rhythm. The stars feel closer now. Historians still argue whether communal Anatolian dances were originally rituals or simply outlets for collective joy. Tonight, it's both. You feel the ritual in the dust rising under your feet, in the synchronized sways, in the call and response of song and drum. At one point, the musicians quiet the pace, slowing into something dreamy. Couples move inward, not romantically, just closely. 2 women circle with linked pinkies. A grandfather dances opposite a toddler with 1 shoe and 3 olives in his pocket. You spin, slowly, arms loose, headlight. Someone passes by with a pitcher of pomegranate juice. You drink mid-dance. It's tart and grounding. The children return to the circle, forming their own constellation of skips and hops. One girl falls, pops back up, and twirls defiantly. A boy drops a flatbread mid-leap. The goat eats it before it touches the ground. You dance longer than you think you can. The body forgets its own weight in rhythm. Every part of you is slightly loose, slightly warm, slightly enchanted. As the music begins to taper, flute softening, drum slowing, lute fading into twilight, the dancers begin to still one by one, a final turn, a bowed head, a shared breath. Silence follows, not awkward, but sacred, then clapping, low at first, then building, not applause exactly, more like gratitude, rhythmic and shared. You sink back into your seat, skin dewy with effort, heart calm and full. The woman beside you hands you a cold grape. You did well, she says. Only 2 left feet, and neither stepped on the goat. You accept the grape and the compliment. Above, the stars watch in silence, blinking their own approval. The music rests, the dancers retreat, and a sleepy hush settles over the square like a soft shawl draped across shoulders. Plates are cleared, candles flicker lower, and even the goat, finally, seems to concede to the evening's lull. You ease back against a stone bench, your crown still slightly askew, the scent of marigold and mint lingering behind your ears. A gentle clatter draws your gaze. Someone is preparing the tea trays. Yes, of course. No feast ends without tea. You watch as the first copper kettles are brought forth. Round-bellied, gently steaming, spouts like curious birds. A boy stokes the embers beneath them with the reverence usually reserved for fire gods or particularly opinionated grandmothers. Tea in Anatolia is not a drink. It's a ceremony in miniature. A girl carries a tray of tulip-shaped glasses, their delicate curves glowing amber as the lamplight catches the surface of steeped leaves. A saucer clinks gently against its twin. A sugar cube is dropped into a cup with a small, satisfying plunk. You're handed a glass. The warmth bleeds through to your fingers, anchoring you like a small sun in your palm. The tea is strong, bold enough to get your attention, but mellow enough to not wake your digestion. You sip. The first taste is earth and heat. The second is clarity. The tray returns, offering additions, slices of lemon, a sprig of fresh sage, 2 cinnamon sticks bound with a string, and inexplicably, a clove stuck into a dried plum. Improvisation, someone says with a shrug. You add sage to yours. It softens the edges of the tea, makes each sip feel like you're slowly being wrapped in a warm story. A man sits down beside you, cradling his own glass. He gestures to the goat, now asleep in the corner, under a cloth that may or may not be a ceremonial rug. She'll snore, he says. Just wait. Sure enough, moments later, a tiny scarf escapes her. The group nearby chuckles. Beside the tea, small plates begin to appear. Unspoken apologies for earlier indulgences, slivers of candied citrus peel, almonds and honey, and tiny cubes of quince jelly. One woman slices figs and sprinkles them with crushed sesame and a whisper of salt. To balance the sweet, she explains, you take one, it's soft, sticky, with a hidden crispness in the seeds. Your teeth sink through the fig, and the sesame crunches like a tiny applause. Another plate holds what looks like thin rice cakes, soaked in rose syrup. They tremble slightly when moved, as if aware they're too delicate for this world. Historians still argue whether these post-feast confections were always intended as digestion aids or simply the final flex of a confident kitchen. Either way, you eat them slowly, reverently, marveling at how even after everything, you still find room. Across from you, an elder peels an apple with almost poetic slowness, the skin curling into a single, unbroken ribbon. He eats each slice with methodical delight, dipping it into a dish of cinnamon sugar between bites. A younger man offers dried apricots soaked in mint syrup. You'll dream better, he says. Or stranger, either's good. Nearby, someone tells a story, not loudly, not theatrically, just speaking to the group around them, like you might around a campfire or under a star-painted ceiling. It's about a fish that stole a priest's sandal and founded a village, or something like that. The plot wanders. The ending is vague, but the rhythm of the tale is soothing. You sip your tea. It's cooling now, but not cold. The sage has grown stronger. It tastes like memory, or maybe just the bottom of the cup. Another tray circles with pistachio-stuffed dates, dusted in crushed rose petals. You hesitate, then take one, then two. The girl who made the herb crown sits beside you, clutching her own tea like a secret. My grandmother used to say, if your tea goes cold before you finish it, you talked too much. You glance at your glass, lukewarm. She smiles knowingly. In the distance, someone plays a soft rhythm on a clay drum. Not a performance now, just a pattern, a heartbeat, a lullaby, a reminder that the night isn't over. It's simply stretching its arms. One final tray makes its way around. It holds just 3 things: honeycomb, dried mulberries, and tiny squares of something the server calls pomegranate leather. You take a piece. It's tart, chewy, with a sweetness that catches at the edges, like a story you almost remember. The stars above are in full glow now. The moon hangs low, watching kindly. Around you, villagers sit in quiet clusters, feet bare, heads leaned together, eyes half-lidded. The feast is behind them, the music a memory, the tea a tether. You exhale, long, slow, content, and somewhere the goat snores again. By now, the village is breathing as one, slow and steady, like dough rising on a warm windowsill. The feast has ebbed into stories, the stories into silence, and that silence into the soft, satisfied hum of a community well-fed, well-moved, and almost ready to sleep, but not quite, because now it's time for the fireflies. A girl with a bowl of clay lamps walks slowly through the square, lighting one, then another, her fingers careful, practiced. The lamps are small, shallow dishes, their wicks floating atop oil infused with orange peel and crushed lavender. Each flame flickers to life like a yawn turned golden. One by one, villagers rise, not briskly, not all at once. They drift. Some carry baskets, others folded linens. The elders carry only their dignity and very sturdy sandals. You follow them to the grove. Past the square, beyond the main well and the goat, lies a gentle copse of fig and olive trees. By day it is shade and fruit. By night it is something quieter, softer. The lamps are placed at the base of trees, on flat rocks, even on the backs of sleeping chickens. A warm golden halo begins to rise, glowing through the underbrush, casting long, leafy shadows onto the trodden path. The fireflies arrive as if invited, tiny pinpricks of light dancing lazily between the branches. You reach out a hand. One hovers near your finger, then disappears with a polite shimmer. A woman beside you lays a woven mat beneath a fig tree and spreads a light blanket across it. Others do the same, building a patchwork of soft sleeping spots under stars and olive limbs. There's no rush, no competition, just choosing a place that feels good, that feels like yours, if only for the night. You find a spot beneath a tree with silver leaves and lean back on a rolled tunic. Your mint-wrapped parcel of pastries rests at your side, unopened but still fragrant. Boy nearby arranges smooth stones in a circle. It keeps the dreams from slipping, he says. You believe him? A girl lies down beside her grandmother. They whisper something, then laugh. Quietly, the kind of laugh you save for moments that can hold it without breaking. Someone somewhere is still strumming a lute. Softly now, the notes fall slowly, spaced apart like raindrops, tapping a roof just before you fall asleep. A breeze wanders through the grove, not strong, not cold, just enough to make the leaves sigh, just enough to carry the smell of warm bread and cool earth. You hear the crackle of someone opening their last fig pastry. You smell rosewater and ash. Historians still argue whether these communal sleep gatherings were born out of necessity, cooler air, shared safety, or simply a reflection of how deeply Anatolians valued the ritual of resting together. Tonight, it feels like an offering, a celebration not just of food, but of what comes after. Full bellies, warm limbs, shared space. A small girl pads past you, barefoot and proud, clutching a soft cloth filled with roasted chickpeas. Midnight snack, she announces to no one in particular, then settles beside a tree stump and begins arranging her blanket like a miniature empress. You shift on your mat, the fabric smells faintly of thyme. Your fingertips still carry the salt of almonds and the sweetness of mulberries. A lantern swings slightly above you, suspended from a fig branch by a ribbon of twisted flax. Its light flickers, catches the silver in the leaves, dances on your crown of laurel and marigold. A boy with a quiet voice asks if he can hum beside you. You nod, he does. You think about the journey of the day, the goat, the missing onions, the great lentil debate, the parsley crowns, the bread that held a secret, the dish that may have been haunted by someone's grandmother. You smile, you exhale. Above you, the stars thicken, not brighter, just more. Your eyes close. They open. They close again. Someone begins to snore. Not the goat this time. A person nearby, and unapologetically so. You nestle deeper into your mat, draw the soft blanket over your shoulder, and let the weight of the night settle. The fireflies blink softly in rhythm. The lamps gutter gently. The lute's last note hovers in the air, then drifts upward, and all around you, under fig and olive, parsley and plum, the village falls asleep. Somewhere between sleep and waking, you hear it. A soft rustling, like silk brushing against stone, then the gentle murmur of footsteps weaving through the mats and blankets, careful not to disturb. Someone is up, possibly several someones, and their task is noble. The leftovers must be tended. You blink open your eyes, not fully rising, just shifting to a comfortable curiosity. The stars are still thick above, their glow wrapped in the faintest veil of mist. The lamps have dimmed, burning lower but still warm. In their amber halo, shadows dance, tall, bent, bustling with purpose. They are the midnight caretakers, volunteers, or perhaps chosen. No one quite remembers how the tradition began, but every year a small, sleepy crew ensures the feast's bounty doesn't meet an unkind end. You watch as two women gently stack flatbreads into a basket lined with fig leaves. Another gathers herb stems for the compost pile, tucking stray marjoram into her braid. A boy, barely awake, solemnly carries a bowl of olives back to the community cellar. One nearly escapes. He catches it mid-air with the reflexes of a nap-trained ninja. A man whispers to a pot of cooling lentils. "You did well," he says, patting its side. "Rest now." You smile, eyes still half closed. Beside you, someone stirs. An older woman wrapped in a shawl that smells of anise and firewood. "They're saving what's worth saving," she says, not opening her eyes. A good feast leaves enough for tomorrow and a story for the next year. Down near the fire pit, the tea kettles are stacked carefully, still holding the faint scent of sage. Small pouch of loose leaves is tucked between them, labeled in charcoal, for mourning or celebration, use wisely. A gentle clink draws your attention. A girl in soft sandals is wrapping dried fruits in waxed cloth. She stops occasionally to nibble one, eyes darting mischievously. She sees you watching and offers a conspiratorial shrug. Quality control, she mouths. Historians still argue whether these post-feast rituals were spiritual, practical, or just an excuse to nibble leftovers in peace. But here now, they feel like reverence, like a benediction offered in breadcrumbs and fig juice. One man is building a leftover plate, just one meant to sit at the edge of the grove on a flat rock. For the wanderer, he says, placing dates, a bit of rice, a wedge of spiced cheese, and 3 olives in perfect symmetry. Or the fox, or the fig spirit, who knows? You consider the fox. You hope it likes lentils. Closer to you, a small pot of thickened yogurt is tucked under a blanket. You hear the woman say, "It'll be cheese by morning if the stars are kind." A boy walks by with a stack of napkins and a heavy yawn. He pauses near your mat and whispers, "Do you want a midnight apricot?" You do. It's wrinkled, sweet, and still clings to the warmth of the day. You eat it slowly, the sugar rich on your tongue, the memory of spices lingering behind it, like shadows after a fire. You lie back again. The wind shifts slightly. From somewhere deeper in the village, you catch the scent of coals being turned, of pots being scrubbed with sand, of cloves and coriander cooling into stillness. The caretakers hum now softly, not a song, not really, just a shared rhythm, a low sound that wraps the trees and sleepers in a kind of lullaby meant only for the night. Durna naturally is awake. You spot her watching the process from her corner beneath the blanket rug, head tilted, chewing slowly on something that might be the last of the parsley crown. No one stops her. In the quiet, you begin to notice more. A ladle left leaning against a stone, a forgotten wreath hanging from a fig limb, now catching the dew, a mat that still holds the imprint of someone's elbow. A spoon stuck artfully into the soil beside the tea mat, as if waiting for a seed. Nothing wasted, everything remembered. At the edge of the grove, someone writes a list into the dirt with a stick. You can't read it, not from this distance. Maybe it's inventory, maybe it's a poem, maybe it's just what you write when your stomach is full, and your soul needs one last task before sleep. One by one, the caretakers fade, back to their mats, back to their nests of linen and fig-scented dreams. The final lamp is dimmed, the last fig leaf basket is tucked beneath a shawl. The silence deepens, not empty, but full of the soft weight of a night well honored. Your eyes drift closed again, the apricot's sweetness still on your lips, the stars unchanged above you. A goat snore, gentle and confident, lilts through the grove. And beneath the olive trees, sleep folds itself around you, like the last course of a long, beautiful meal. The first hints of dawn are still far off, just a whisper of silver tucked behind the mountains. When the quiet is broken, not by alarm or accident, but by the unmistakable sound of someone clearing their throat with tremendous ceremony. You sit up slightly, bleary-eyed and blanket-wrapped, to see an older man rising with the kind of theatrical dignity usually reserved for stage actors or particularly dramatic roosters. His crown of bay leaves is askew, his tunic mildly wrinkled, and his expression grave. He holds a ceramic cup like a scepter. He is, you are told, the toastmaster. Every year, once the feast winds into stillness, once the caretakers have tended to the pots and the stars have seen their fill, the toastmaster rises, not to rouse, but to honor, with words, with song, and often with just enough wine to make all of it slightly unpredictable. He clears his throat again, nods to the horizon, then begins. To the lentils, he says solemnly, raising his cup, may they never betray us. There is a pause, a single clap, a second, then a warm ripple of laughter and lazy applause. The people are waking, and the words are welcome. To the bread that did not burn, to the goat who did not win every contest, to the dancers who kept their sandals, and the singers who did not. You sip warm water from a clay jug, your lips curving into a sleepy smile. And to those, he adds, who did not fall asleep on the food this year. More laughter. The girl with the fig pastry parcel raises hers like a trophy to new recipes and old arguments, to red lentils, green lentils, and whatever the black ones are really trying to prove. Now people are sitting up, rubbing their eyes, adjusting their blankets and crowns. A few sip leftover tea. One woman offers her neighbor a piece of dried pear with silent generosity. The toastmaster continues, to the parsley crown, which was not technically edible, but was, in fact, consumed. A child burps gently in response. And to the eggplant, he intones, which was not undercooked despite what certain cousins implied. You watch as one woman dramatically rolls her eyes. Beside the toastmaster, a young man begins to pluck a few notes on the lute, just soft background, like a breeze given rhythm. The elder nods approvingly. And now I invite to the circle anyone foolish or full enough to make a boast. A few chuckles. One bold boy with sticky cheeks stands. I caught the goat, he declares. Did not, someone mutters. I almost caught the goat, he corrects. She escaped, but only barely. Another child stands. I made a crown using only things I found near the latrine. Gasps, groans, one reluctant cheer. The toastmaster bows his head. You are very brave. A woman lifts her voice in song, just a line, lilting and familiar. Others join in, no lyrics, no script, just a rising tide of wordless music, the kind that loops in your head long after it ends. And then, from nowhere and everywhere, a dancer named Bird emerges. Yes, Bird. No one knows if that's her real name, a nickname, or a title she earned after one particularly inspiring leap from a fig cart. Regardless, she is barefoot, wide-eyed, and already spinning. Her dress flows behind her like a story with no punctuation. Her arms arc like olive branches in a breeze. Each step is deliberate, precise, and somehow still sleepy. You don't know if it's a dance, a dream, or some long-lost ritual only she remembers. People make room for her, clearing the circle, widening the space. The music bends to her pace, slower, then wild, then soft again. She pauses mid-spin and lifts a flatbread into the air. Everyone applauds. She breaks it, passes half to the toastmaster, then disappears into the grove, with the other half like a fox with sacred crumbs. The toastmaster bows. A perfect offering, he says. The dancer has danced. The night has forgiven us. He raises his cup one last time. To all who ate, who danced, who sang, who slept, may your dreams be seasoned and your mornings gentle. A round clinks, cups, bowls, spoons, and at least one tambourine. Gosh. Historians still argue whether such toasts marked the formal end of Anatolian feasts or were simply indulgent add-ons by the more theatrical village elders. But under the olive trees, in the quiet afterglow of fire and fig, it feels like the most necessary part. You lie back down, the warmth of the moment still wrapped around your ribs. The stars are fading now, just a little. Bird's dance still lingers in your mind like a swirl of flour on a breadboard. Someone near you whispers, "Same time next year?" You nod, even if no one sees. The toast has been given, the last dance danced, and slowly, inevitably, morning leans into the grove. Not loudly, not rudely, just a gentle tiptoe of golden light at the horizon's edge, barely brushing the tops of the fig trees and slipping between the branches, like it's trying not to wake anyone too soon. But the village is already stirring, not rising exactly, more like unfolding. Blankets are drawn tighter, eyes peek open. Some roll over with the firm conviction that sleep is still winning. Others sit up slowly, like bread eased from its pan. You're among the latter. Your body feels limber, soft with rest. Your fingers smell faintly of crushed mint. Your crown, somehow still perched on your head, is missing one marigold. You choose to believe the goat borrowed it respectfully. Near the well, a kettle is already steaming. Of course it is. A few villagers are up preparing first mouthfuls. Not breakfast, not yet. These are soft offerings, lightly warmed milk with honey, mashed dates with lemon zest, cooled rice steeped overnight in cinnamon water. You're handed a small bowl, barely a few spoonfuls, of crushed almonds folded into yogurt, topped with a few red currants. You eat it slowly, each bite the culinary equivalent of a pat on the back. Nearby, two older men sip thick coffee in silence, their eyes fixed on the slowly brightening sky. Last year, one says, the sky was more purple. The other nods. The goat was quieter too. The goat naturally snorts in response. You wrap your blanket around your shoulders and stroll past sleeping forms and quiet conversations. The grove looks different now. Dew catches on the grape leaves. The fig trees stretch their shadows westward. A dog yawns so deeply it squeaks. Somewhere, a spoon clinks gently against a clay mug. And then you see it, the aftermath. The tables from the feast still stand, though their linen cloths have slipped sideways. A few leftover bowls are stacked neatly. Flower crowns, half wilted, sit where their wearers forgot them. The spiral of stuffed grape leaves has become a semicircle. The pickled carrots are gone, probably for the best. But the feeling remains. This isn't mess, it's memory. Two teenagers sweep the dust gently, not to erase but to soften. Their brooms are made of tied herbs, basil, wild thyme, maybe even some fennel. The scent is forgiving. A woman walks past holding a bundle of empty fig baskets. You ask what happens to them. Refilled, she says. Life never empties just once. You pass a boy counting lentils. No one knows why. Historians still argue whether such day-after rituals in Anatolian life were structured forms of cleanup, or if the slow restoration was itself a spiritual act, an invitation to notice what remains and what changes. Either way, here there is no rush, just quiet tending. You see someone retying the herb garland around the well. Another hangs the leftover tea cloth to dry in the morning breeze. A child gently nudges a sleeping chicken off a folded blanket. By the communal oven, there is activity again, not the fevered energy of feast preparations. This is calm, intentional. Someone flours a board. Another cracks eggs into a bowl. A handful of fresh greens are chopped with slow, precise movements. The first loaf of the day is slid into the oven. Someone murmurs, "For beginnings." You are offered a cup of warm water infused with lemon and sage. It tastes like goodbye, in the kindest way. The musician from the night before now tunes his lute in the quiet corner where dreams once danced. He plays a few slow notes, not to stir, just to notice. Nearby, a girl is sketching the fire circle in the dirt with a stick. No one stops her. A boy adds to it, drawing figs falling from trees, a goat eating a crown, a dancing woman with spiral feet. Soon, it becomes a map, or maybe a memory. Your steps lead you back to the stone bench near where the tea was poured last night. The stone is still warm, sun-kissed. You sit, you breathe. A light breeze rustles the olive leaves. One floats down and lands beside your foot like a final note in a song. You don't want to leave, not yet. A voice nearby, perhaps the toastmaster again, says softly, "We never end, we just let the story sleep a while." You close your eyes, not to rest, just to listen. As the morning stretches fully awake, the village eases into a rhythm that feels like both a farewell and a gentle encore. Not dramatic, not sharp, just a soft exhale after a long, slow inhale. You find yourself meandering toward the edge of the grove, where the path winds toward the fields. There's no formal procession, no bell or horn, just instinct guiding the feet. Others move with you, some still wrapped in shawls, others now barefoot carrying baskets, a few with sleepy children balanced expertly on hips. The goat walks too, of course, at her own pace. Royal, the fields beyond the village shimmer with dew. Fig trees give way to rows of barley, soft with new green. You smell earth, crushed mint, and something else, perhaps leftover dreams. You passed a woman bent over a patch of herbs. She's clipping basil with a blade shaped like a half moon. "Breakfast," she says, not looking up. The calm kind. Up ahead, a few villagers have gathered near a stone-lined trough. Someone pours water from a large jug. Another washes her face with the cool stream, her fingers moving slowly, ritualistically. You do the same. The water is startling at first, then refreshing, like the final paragraph of a favorite book. The trough is surrounded by wildflowers, yarrow, anise, a rogue poppy or two. One child collects the petals. "For the bread," she says. You do not question it. You walk farther, through a row of young plum trees, each branch heavy with the promise of later. The ground beneath them is damp with early irrigation, and tiny frogs skip across your path like punctuation marks in a poem you can't quite read. By the time you return to the grove, breakfast has begun to bloom. It's nothing like the feast, and yet it carries the same care. Flatbreads warmed over coals, soft cheese wrapped in fig leaves, honey in little clay bowls with wooden sticks for drizzling, fresh herbs, parsley, mint, oregano, laid out in bunches like morning bouquets. Boiled eggs, speckled and pale, rest beside small saucers of crushed salt and cumin. Olives again, of course. But these are sun-warmed and less smugs. Someone hands you a small dish of fava beans, mashed with lemon and dill. It tastes like simplicity, like intention. Historians still argue whether the Anatolian morning meal was communal by design, or simply evolved that way through habit and necessity. But watching the way hands reach to fill other bowls before their own, the way one elder gently smears cheese onto her neighbor's bread without a word, you believe it was always meant to be shared. A boy sits beside you and spreads a spoonful of jam, fig, of course, onto a slice of bread. "This fig was picked by mistake," he says. "It wasn't ready, but now it's the best one." You nod like this is the wisdom of the day. The music this morning is different. No lute, no drum, just birdsong, breeze, and the rhythmic tap of butter being churned in a small clay pot. A woman hums as she works. It sounds like something from before your time. A cup of warm milk is passed to you, lightly spiced, just barely sweet, a touch of clove, a whisper of cinnamon. To smooth the path home, they say. Not everyone eats, some simply sit, watching Zara breathing, holding the warmth of the feast in their bones like coals banked for the next fire. You notice Bird again, now curled beneath a tree, hair tangled, fingers wrapped around a half-eaten fig. She opens one eye. "Did we dance?" she asks. You nod, she grins. "Good, I thought so." A small group gathers near the well, not for water, but for farewells. Hugs, shoulder squeezes, silent hand clasps. One man leaves a bundle of herbs on the stone lip. Another adds a folded piece of paper. You suspect it's a recipe. The goat lingers beside the oven, where the final batch of bread is being wrapped in cloth and tied with string. Someone slips her a heel crust. She accepts with weary grace. Ooh, you walk the grove slowly now. Every step feels like a memory crystallizing. You pause by the tree where you slept. Brush your hand against its bark. Pick up a fallen fig leaf. Tuck it into your pocket. You are full, not just in the belly, in the chest, the heart, the spaces between your ribs where joy tends to hide. A voice near your elbow whispers, "Next time, you should try the pickled turnips." You smile. Another says, "Bring a recipe next year." You will. Leaving the grove doesn't feel like leaving. It feels like remembering in real time. Each step on the dusty path back toward the village square brings you past echoes of what the night gave you, one parsley sprig at a time. A young girl balances a basket of eggs on her head, walking barefoot across the soft earth with the focus of a queen. They're for later, she explains to no one. Or now. Depends. You nod. As with most things here, time seems to stretch and fold like warm dough. Later and now are sometimes the same thing. Back in the square, the tables have been cleared entirely. Only the long wooden planks remain, a few grape leaves clinging stubbornly to the corners, a smear of apricot jam refusing to be scrubbed off just yet. It glints like a secret. There is a lightness here, a freshness to the air, even though the scent of last night's spices still hovers like a memory just out of reach. Someone sweeps quietly. A toddler chases a chicken with a ribbon. Two teenagers sit shoulder to shoulder on the fountain rim, chewing the last of the rose sugar. You find your crown, wilted but dignified, resting on a wall near the well. The lavender has crisped. The laurel leaves are curling at the edges, but the thyme still stubbornly green. You lift it just once and place it gently over your shoulder. The goat watches, approvingly. A woman is laying out a cloth on the well stones. She begins placing bowls, nuts, herbs, seeds, petals. "What's this?" you ask, your voice low, not to startle the moment. "The exchange," she says simply. You wait. People come slowly, with little bundles wrapped in fabric or tucked into their palms. They place them down, quiet offerings, a dried apricot here, a pinch of saffron there. One woman lays a single preserved lemon. A man carefully places an old wooden spoon. They take something in return, a leaf, a clove, a thread. There's no barter, no trade, just giving and choosing, a ritual of participation and quiet gratitude. You kneel, fingers brushing over the offerings. Your hand hovers above a tiny bundle of dried mint and orange peel tied with string. You pick it up. It feels light, but grounding. In return, you place your crown, the laurel, the thyme, the marigold, faded, sure, but full of story. Someone will know it's been danced in. Behind you, the village is slowly folding into itself, blankets shaken out, leftovers tucked away, children herded gently toward nap time or chores. A rooster crows, not early, not late, just proud of its timing. You are handed a piece of bread, still warm, flecked with sesame and salt. No words are exchanged, just the nod, the sacred nod of bread shared freely. You bite. It's perfect, the kind of perfect that doesn't boast, doesn't need a sauce, doesn't ask to be remembered, and yet it will be. You chew slowly, respectfully. A woman leans close, whispering, "It's from the dough that sat overnight by the fig tree." You know the one. Someone nearby pours water over their hands, letting it drip back into the soil. Another lights a tiny sprig of sage and waves it near the door to the community cellar. A soft humming begins. No melody you recognize, but familiar all the same. It threads through the villagers like a breeze through a wheat field. You close your eyes just for a moment. The sun is higher now, the air warmer, the scent of fennel and stone and lingering sweetness curls around you like a scarf. Historians still argue whether the conclusion of Anatolian feasts involved formal ceremonies or were simply natural fade-outs, softened by tea and bread and the mutual understanding of shared space. But here, under a sun just beginning to climb, with mint on your tongue and your crown left behind, it feels like the perfect ending. Someone places a gentle hand on your shoulder. Will you come back? You open your eyes, smile. Yes, you say without hesitation. Because how could you not? There's no real departure bell, no formal send-off, just the soft choreography of farewell unfolding around you, quiet as footsteps on morning soil. Some villagers begin to pack bundles, not rushed, just methodical. A folded shawl here, a parcel of dates there. One man carefully tucks a piece of honeycomb into a jar layered with lemon slices. For a friend who missed the feast, he says, and maybe a little for me. Others linger, sweeping corners of the grove, where petals still cling like confetti. The parsley crown fragments are gathered and, surprisingly, hung on a string above the well. Next year's garland, someone jokes. Maybe they're right. You walk a familiar path now, passing the grove, the oven, the well. The traces of night remain in the air, figs and smoke, laughter and cumin, footsteps and dreams. You don't want to brush them away. You want to carry them, tucked somewhere behind your ribs. A girl stops you at the edge of the grove. She's holding a folded piece of cloth. She hands it to you silently. Inside is a single preserved lemon wrapped in bay leaves, a sliver of apricot pastry, and a sprig of rosemary. A soft farewell, a souvenir made not of trinkets, but taste. Emergency feast, she says. You nod. I'll ration it carefully. On a nearby log, the toastmaster naps upright, his ceremonial cup still cradled in one hand. His marigold crown has fallen down around his neck like a necklace of sun. He snores gently, proud even in sleep. You pass by Bird, who is teaching 2 children how to twirl without dizziness. It's in the toes, she says, or the sole, no one's sure. A small boy follows you for a while, then hands you a painted stone, on one side a fig tree, on the other a goat eating a napkin. You accept it like a medal. As you approach the end of the village, the landscape opens, rolling hills baked golden in the morning light, wheat whispering to itself in soft breezes, the occasional olive tree standing like a punctuation mark in a story you now know by heart. You stop, you look back, the village is still alive behind you, not disappearing, just shrinking into distance. The music, the laughter, the warmth, all folded up like leftovers in a fig leaf. A few others are leaving too, some on foot, one with a donkey that appears to be entirely uninterested in directions. Another family sings softly as they walk, their voices braiding together in a lullaby meant more for the hills than each other. Historians still argue whether these Anatolian departures were solitary or communal, if people walked off alone or gathered in lines like geese. But like everything here, It seems the answer is yes to both. Alone, together, together, alone. You begin your descent. The road is warm beneath your feet, the dust soft. Your steps are slow, not from fatigue, but reverence, a sacred slowness, a pause in motion. You think about the bread, the lentils, the goat's unexpected dominance, the girl with the mystery herbs, the boy counting olives, the fireflies that blinked like lullabies, the crown you wore, then gifted, the laughter, the quiet. You breathe it all in and then out. At a bend in the road, you see a rock. Someone scratched a simple symbol into it, a spiral. You recognize it from the hand pies, the same curl, the same question. You smile. The journey home is yours to make. But you'll carry this place with you, in your mouth, your ears, your chest. The music might fade, the spices might dull, but the memory, it lingers like honey on the tongue, like a breeze under fig trees, like a song you didn't know you knew. You walk on, and behind you, in the village that sleeps with its eyes half open and its heart entirely full, the last lamp flickers out. So now, as the stars have faded and the fig leaves settle back into their branches, it's time to let your mind rest as well. Let the flavors of the feast linger, soft cheese on warm bread, the sweet bite of dried apricots, the earthy cradle of lentils cooked just right. Let them melt into memory, into dream. The goat is quiet now. The music has softened into silence. The circle of dancers rests in your thoughts, slow turning like shadows on a sundial. The parsley crown has returned to the soil, a gift from one season to the next. You feel the weight of the bread in your hand. You don't need to eat it now. Just know it's there, comfort folded in cloth, a promise from yesterday whispering into tomorrow. Your breathing slows. The stars are gone, but their light lingers, hidden behind your closed eyelids, like old stories waiting to be told again. The road stretches ahead, but not tonight. Tonight, you are still, rooted in the warmth of the grove, wrapped in song and spice, and the soft hush of shared sleep. There is nothing more to gather, nothing more to say. Just the quiet rhythm of your breath, the soft hum of peace, and the echo of a village that fed you with more than food. Let it all blur now. Let the olive branches sway gently overhead. Let the fireflies blink a little slower, and let your thoughts fall like fig leaves to the earth, one by one, soft and unhurried. You are full. You are held. You are home. Good night.